Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto and Hinata hide their strength part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Today was a special day. Today was the day of the final graduation exam of the academy in the village hidden in the leaves. Today was a day when children would celebrate with their parents for becoming registered ninja of the village. Today was a day of happiness for all of those who would graduate. However, today was not the day to celebrate graduation for two young people. These people had failed the graduation exam and would have to wait another year in the academy before taking the exam again. Or that is what they were told. These young kids' names were Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga. Naruto was a loud, annoying, brash, confident prankster who would yell to the world his dream of becoming Hokage. He was also an orphan and a nobody, and the village pariah. Hinata was a shy, reserved, quiet young lady who would never dream of hurting anything. She was constantly blushing and hiding her cute face into the heavy coat she wore everywhere, regardless of temperature. She was also the heiress to the biggest and most well-renowned clan in Konoha, the Hyuga. People who saw these two sitting outside the academy together by the lone tree swing couldn't help but pity them. Or at least they pitied Hinata. There was no way in hell that they would ever pity the demon boy who they blamed for destroying the village 13 years ago. If anything, they pitied Hinata for being lumped in with the demon as a failure. The people saw these two kids looking depressed and thought they knew everything about them. They didn't know how wrong they were. The truth was that these two had known each other since a fateful event when they were 5. That event changed their lives and created the masks that these two wore now. These masks encompassed everything about them, from their looks to their attitude. These masks were the reason that they failed. These masks were part of their plan that they had carefully worked on since they were 5. Today was special for these two indeed. Today was special because today was the day that those masks would fall. Today was a turning point in their young lives. Today was the day that they revealed themselves for how they truly were. Today was indeed special. "Ano Naruto-kun, what happens if our plan doesn't work?" Hinata said quietly. "Which part of the plan, the Mizuki part or the whole plan?" Naruto said while scanning for any possible eavesdroppers. "The Mizuki part." Hinata replied. "It will work," replied Naruto. "The bastard is too power-hungry for his own good. Besides, here he comes now." Seeing Naruto and Hinata sitting alone by the swing, Mizuki began to walk over to them with a barely concealed smirk on his face. "This is perfect. Not only did the demon boy fail, but the Hyuga heiress did as well. I will be able to slaughter the demon brat, get the scroll of sealing for Lord Orochimaru, and sell the Hyuga brat as a slave to the cloud. I'll be rich, and in good favor with my master. It's a win-win-win situation." Thinking all of this as he sauntered over to the failures, he got up to them and got their attention. "Don't you two look rather down in the dumps?" Mizuki asked. "I have just the thing that will cheer you two up. But you have to promise not to tell anyone or else I won't help you." "What could you possibly have that could cheer us up, Mizuki-sensei?" asked Naruto. "The only thing that would cheer us up is another way to graduate, but we all know that that isn't possible." "But that is where you happen to be wrong, Naruto. There is another way you can pass." Seeing Naruto and Hinata's faces brighten up, he thought to himself they fell for it hook, line, and sinker. "Now here is what you two have to do." Mizuki proceeded to explain the location of the scroll of sealing, and where to bring it when they got it. "All you two have to do is learn one jutsu from the scroll without getting caught by anyone, and you'll be genin. But remember, if you tell anyone about this then our deal will be void." Seeing Naruto and Hinata nod in affirmative, Mizuki left to go back home. A few hours later within a forest. Stealing this scroll from the old man was a piece of cake, right Hinata? I mean, come on, he got knocked out from one shot of my Oroku no Jutsu. While I would agree that a scroll of this importance should be better protected, I will have to ask you to never use that jutsu again. "Okay, Naruto-kun?" replied Hinata sweetly. Sure thing, Hinata-chan," said Naruto nervously. "Damn, she can be really scary." "Now while I know that stealing the scroll was just part of our plan to expose Mizuki, I don't see why we can't use this scroll to help us learn, so let's learn some jutsus." "Oh, I know, I can use this cool new scroll copying Fuinjusta that I learned from this book that I borrowed from the advanced ninja portion of the library. That way we can spend our time looking at it." "That's a great idea, Naruto-kun." Naruto placed the scroll on the ground, then took some ink, a brush, and some paper out of his pouch and proceeded to neatly write an intricate seal on the piece of paper. When he finished he placed the paper on the scroll and said Fuinjutsu. Scroll copying seal. Black markings erupted from the paper and covered the scroll before returning to the piece of paper. With that done, Naruto removed the slip of paper and carefully folded it before placing it in his pouch. Done. Now we just have to get a blank scroll or scrolls and activate the seal, and it will copy as much of the original onto the new scroll that will fit," said Naruto triumphantly. Hinata smiled and said, "Now how about we look for anything cool in the scroll before Mizuki gets here?" "Alright." They both sat down next to each other in between some tree roots and opened up the scroll. The first item listed that caught their interests. The Kagebunshin. "I never knew that it was a Jonin level technique. Sensei failed to mention that when he taught us," said Naruto as he rambled on his thoughts. Well, maybe he didn't want us to get a big head like your mask would obviously do if he had learned it, replied Hinata with a cute giggle. Speaking of sensei, he hasn't spoken to either of us for a while now. What do you think he is doing, Naruto-kun? Asked Hinata. Knowing him, he's been spending his time sleeping. Although I do have to wonder when he will let us drop the special henge that he made us put up. It is so annoying not being able to walk in our actual bodies, replied Naruto with a hint of annoyance in his voice. While I agree with you about the henge, Naruto-kun, you do have to realize that it masks other things besides our appearance. If we didn't have his special henge, who knows what sort of trouble you and me would get into, said Hinata with another giggle at the end. Although I do have to imagine that he will let us put it down soon since we are unmasking ourselves today. Naruto heard rustling in some nearby bushes and quickly told Hinata to be quiet. They were expecting Mizuki to come out of the bushes, but surprisingly Irika popped out instead. Naruto, Hinata, you have no idea how much trouble you two are in, screamed Irika. Trouble? What do you mean, Irika-sensei? We got the scroll and learned a jutsu from it. Doesn't that mean that we passed? Questioned Naruto. Who told you that if you stole the scroll and learned a jutsu that you would pass? Asked Irika carefully. Suddenly there was a whistling noise as four shuriken shot out of a nearby bush aimed directly at Naruto. Naruto braced for impact as the shuriken came closer, but when he heard the noise of metal piercing flesh, he felt no pain. Opening his eyes, he saw Irika leaning over him with blood dribbling down his face and four shuriken sticking out his back. That would be me, said Mizuki evilly. I was the one who told them to steal the scroll and to come here under the illusion that they would become genin. I was the one who also rigged all of Naruto's tests so that they would be Chunin level questions. I also was the one who punished Naruto for things he didn't even do. Do you want to know why, Naruto? Why I did these horrible things to you? Why everybody hates you? It's quite simply it's because you can't, Mizuki. It's against the law to tell him, yelled Irika desperately. Ignoring Irika, Mizuki continued, because you are the nine-tailed demon fox. Dead silence filled the air. Suddenly Mizuki started laughing manically. Hee hee ha 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 ha. Tio stunned Tio move after being told what you actually are. That's a joke. You really are pathetic, demon. I'm going to enjoy slaughtering you and selling your whore of a Hyuga to the cloud. There is no telling what they will do to her body though. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly a huge amount of killing intent started rolling off of Naruto. Feeling it, Mizuki started to unconsciously sweat. Inside Naruto's and Hinata's head they heard a voice which said, I've had enough of that wimp's pathetic laughter. Destroy him but keep him alive. I'm sure your Hokage will want to have a few words with him. You shouldn't need my help. They both replied in their heads, hi sensei. The killing intent coming off Naruto suddenly doubled in amount, and added on top of it Hinata started pouring out her own, matching the level of Naruto's. Mizuki started to really sweat as he felt their combined killing intents bury him. How is this possible? The demon I can imagine, but this little girl is matching his killing intent with no effort. Wasn't this girl the shy little Hyuga brat who refused to hurt a fly? What the hell is going on? The killing intent suddenly stopped and Mizuki breathed in a huge gulp of air. He had been unconsciously holding his breath. You know, you really should keep your mouth shut, you idiot. I can take whatever insults or hatred people have towards me. I'm used to that. However, the moment you insult my friends, that is the moment that you've signed your own death warrant. And you didn't just insult one of my friends. You insulted and threatened my Hinata-chan. Normally that alone is warrant enough for your instant death, but I have a better idea. Hinata-chan and I are going to destroy your body, but we will keep you alive. Then we will let the interrogation and torture department destroy your mind. Ironically, me and Ibiki are actually pretty close after I helped him with a prisoner that he couldn't crack. So I'm sure he will be extra nice to you after he hears what you have done to me, said Naruto in a pitiless voice. As if 2 academy students could possibly beat me, screamed Mizuki. Hinata finally spoke up and grimly said, underestimating us will be one of the last things you will ever do. With that, Hinata and Naruto stood side by side and made a familiar hand sign. Tajua Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Smoke filled the forest, and when it cleared there stood 500 copies of Naruto and 500 copies of Hinata. Mizuki fell over in fear. The clones pounced. Mizuki's screams could be heard throughout the forest. With a huge rush of smoke, all of Naruto and Hinata's clones dispelled. Lying bloodied and beaten on the ground was the crippled form of Mizuki. The only way to tell that it was in fact Mizuki was to look at the few spots of his hair that were not covered in blood. Satisfied with the job well done, Naruto and Hinata walked over to Irika, helped him up and slung him over their shoulders. They started to trudge back to the village in silence when Irika spoke up. So I take it that you two are hiding something rather large? He asked the young kids. Taking his free hand and rubbing the back of his head in a nervous gesture, Naruto said, you caught us, Irika-sensei. But we won't tell you until after we tell the old man. But I promise that we will tell you what the old man says we can safely tell you after we get his permission. Fine. But before you two go to talk to the Hokage, can you help me get to the hospital first? These wounds are not going to heal themselves. That's fine, Irika-sensei. Your safety takes priority. Just then there was the whooshing of air as several members of the ANBU appeared, followed by the Hokage himself. Ah, Naruto, just the boy I was hoping to see. Would you care to explain why you stole the scroll of sealing and why Iruka has 4 shuriken in his back? Asked the Hokage with an edge in his voice. Sure thing, old man. Several Anbu sweat dropped upon hearing the way he referred to the Hokage. But first we have to get Iruka-sensei to the hospital, and if we are going to tell you anything it will be just you, me, and Hinata with several security seals in place. Said Naruto cheerfully. Very well. Cat, board, take Iruka off their hands and get him to the hospital. Hi, Hokage-sama. They dutifully replied. They shifted Iruka onto their shoulders and proceeded to shun Shin away. Freed of their burden, Naruto and Hinata stretched out their backs and got a few satisfying cracks. Hiruzen's eyes widened as they, no, she did so. The shy heir to the Hyuga clan just cracked her back in public, and in front of the Hokage no less. Hinata, seeing his expression, giggled and said, what, you really think that I'm that shy little girl who can't stand up to anything? No, I'm so much more than that. But we will talk about that later, when there are seals in place. Snapping out of his shocked state, the Hokage cleared his throat and said, well, we should hurry up then. I am now very curious as to what you two have to say to me. With that they quickened their pace to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower, Hokage's room. 5 minutes later. Alright, we are here. So what is it that you? Seals first, questions later, old man. Naruto and Hinata then proceeded to go quickly through several hand signs and said Fuinjutsu. Perfect sound barrier and Fuinjutsu. Perfect sight barrier. The walls of the room glowed with markings as the 2 jutsus took effect. The Hokage was flabbergasted. He had just watched 2 academy students use an A-rank Fuinjutsu each. Would you care to explain how you 2 just used an A-ranked jutsu? The Hokage asked in a dangerous voice. Sure, our sensei taught it to us for pretty much this exact reason. Replied Naruto. You 2 have a sensei? Who? Everybody knows that private tutoring of academy students is not allowed unless they are within the same clan. If this person is someone in the Leaf Village, they will be severely punished. The Hokage then noticed something that was a bit off between the 2 of them. Something that he only noticed because he was practically interrogating them with his gaze. Also, you 2 can drop the henge. I know that you 2 are hiding under one. Hearing this, Naruto started clapping and laughed while, old man, you really are worthy of the title God of Shinobi. To be able to see through something that not even the whole Hyuga clan's Byakugan could see through. You really are amazing, old man. Naruto turned to face Hinata and asked, well, Hina-chan, are you ready for the first mask to fall? Hi, Ritokun, I believe that we can trust the Hokage with our secrets. Answered Hinata. At this they both made a hand seal and said kai before exploding in a puff of smoke. As the smoke cleared, what the Hokage saw left him completely speechless. Standing in front of him were Naruto and Hinata wrapped up in a passionate kiss. But that was not what surprised him. What surprised him was how different they looked. The people kissing in front of him were not 13. They both had the bodies of 18-year-olds. Naruto was wearing his Shippuden jacket unzipped with a tight black shirt that showed off his well-defined muscles. He wore black pants that were similar to what the ANBU wore along with the standard black ninja shoes. His hair was a little longer than his younger selves and it made him look like a younger Minato Namikaze. He wore black ANBU gauntlets that had an orange plate instead of the standard gray. Finally, he had a hideate that had the kanji for fox on it that was secured around his forehead by a long piece of black cloth. Looking over to Hinata, the Hokage was hard-pressed to not get a nosebleed. Only years of training by being a closet pervert allowed him to accomplish this feat. Hinata was wearing dark blue pants that clung nicely to her lower body. She wore similar shoes to Naruto, only that hers were white. She also wore a very low-cut lavender tank top that revealed a great deal of her bust, which the Hokage estimated was easily in the E-cup range. Pervert powers activate. She also had a necklace that ended in a small red fox with 9 tails. To finish off her outfit, she had a hideate that also had the kanji for fox on it that was secured around her neck by a piece of lavender cloth. But an interesting thing about her is that she had a tattoo of a 9-tailed fox that looked like it was laying on the top of her left. The fox's tails wrapped along the underside of her and continued to the top of her. They ended with the white tips of the tails near the center of her. Naruto and Hinata had been kissing all this time while Hiruzen observed their new features. But they finally broke apart to get some much-needed air. Turning to the Hokage, Naruto grinned and asked, any questions? Which elicited a giggle from Hinata. Just one. How? Answered the old man. That's a fun one, since we get to tell you the whole story, and hopefully that will answer any other questions that might come up. Now where to begin? Yes, it was 8 years ago on my birthday, October 10th. Flashback no jutsu. Get back here, you demon! Die, you demon scum! You'll pay for what you have done, you demon bastard! These shouts and similar ones followed Naruto as he raced through the streets of Konoha to try and escape the mob that was chasing him. He turned a corner into an alleyway, then suddenly slammed into someone on accident. This allowed the mob to catch up. They picked him up and slammed him against the wall. Now that we have you, we are going to make you pay for what you have done. Look, you just assaulted the Hyuga heiress, and in my opinion that deserves a death sentence. Who knows, maybe the Hyuga clan will be so grateful that they will pay me for saving her. Anyways, now you die. The man pulled out a knife and was about to thrust it into Naruto's throat when suddenly his arm went limp and he dropped his knife onto his foot. He jumped back and screamed in pain, releasing Naruto. He looked up to see the Hyuga heiress standing in front of Naruto in a rudimentary juken stance. "You'll pay for that, you little bitch." Pulling his knife out of his foot, he turned his attention onto Hinata and advanced towards her. She was frozen in fear and couldn't do anything. She turned to ask Naruto for help, but he was just standing there with a glazed look in his eyes. She ran over to him and started begging him to help her, but she got no response. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto landed with a large splash into what appeared to be a sewer system. He got up and frowned at his soaked clothes before looking around. "Where am I?" he asked himself. The last thing he remembered was the cute girl with lavender eyes saving his life, and then suddenly he was here. "You are in your mind," Kit answered a loud and dark voice. Naruto whipped around and saw that he was standing in front of a huge cage. Inside the cage he saw a gigantic fox with 9 tails that lazily flicked about. "My mind? How is that possible? And if so, why the hell do I have a giant fur ball in here with me?" "Giant fur ball? Is that what you think I am? I ought to destroy you, you insignificant whelp. How dare you insult me? I am the great Kyuubi no Kitsune. Yeah, I know who you are, but that doesn't explain why you are in my mind though. Unless you got sealed in here by someone. If that is what happened, then suddenly my life makes a whole lot more sense." "Well, the kid is smarter than he looks, Yes, you are right, I did get sealed in here by the Yondaime Hokage, and yes, I am the sole reason why your life has been miserable. Do you hate me for that? Do you hate me for making your life shit? Do I hate you? Why would I hate you? My life may not be great, but at least I'm not some stuck-up prick who thinks that they own the world. So no, I don't hate you. In fact, I am glad that you are stuck inside of me because it has taught me humility and made me stronger." Suddenly there was a loud booming noise that repeatedly reverberated through the sewer. It took Naruto a moment to realize that that noise was actually the Kyuubi laughing. "Ha ha 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 ha, you are funny, Kit, I'll give you that. And you have spunk too. I like that. How about I make you a deal, Kit? Right now in the world, that cute girl who saved your life is about to get skewered. If you remove this godforsaken seal, I'll give you the power to save her life, and I promise not to take over your body or anything like that. Demons can't break promises. All I ask for in return is that you summon me to your world every so often, and as an added bonus, I'll train you to become a ninja. How does that sound? You better act quickly before the girl gets impaled." "That deal sounds fine to me. I just have one question." "What's that, Kit? What is your real name?" "My real name? Ha 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 ha, I really like you, Kit. It's Kurama." "Yours?" "Naruto." With that, Naruto jumped up to the seal, grabbed it, but then a hand grabbed his, stopping him. "Sorry whoever you are, but I have a life I need to save." Saying this, Naruto shook the hand off and ripped the seal completely off. Real world. The explosion of chakra that happened could be felt throughout Konoha. People who knew what this chakra was thought that the world was ending. But as quickly as the explosion came, it left. Inbu raced to where the epicenter of the chakra explosion was, and what they found there was a horror scene. Bits of human bodies were everywhere, and the alleyway was drenched in blood. Amazingly, none of the surrounding buildings were harmed by the explosion. There was no evidence of who had done this since there were no survivors. Meanwhile, at the field on top of the Yondaime's head, 2 people were washing their clothes in a stream, trying their best to remove all the blood that had soaked into it. "Hey, what's your name? I would like to know the name of the cute girl that I saved." "Ano, it's Hinata Hyuga." "Ano, are those real?" Hinata had been watching them for some time, and she needed to know if they were real. What was she referring to? Why the 9 red with blonde tips foxtails and the 2 similarly colored fox ears that Naruto now had on his body? "Oh, these? Yeah, I guess they are real. I mean, I can feel stuff that they touch. Can I touch them?" Hinata asked shyly. "Sure, I don't see why not." Hinata eeped with joy and pretty much tackled the boy and started rubbing his tails, not caring that both of them were currently naked. As soon as she started rubbing his tails, a deep rumbling noise came out from the base of Naruto's throat. Hearing this noise come from his throat caused him to blush deeply. "You purr too? You're the best boy ever," stated Hinata with joy, causing Naruto to blush even deeper. "I only wish that I could have tails like you." "How did you even get them?" asked Hinata. Naruto proceeded to tell Hinata of what happened in his mind, and when he finished, Hinata was looking at him with stars in her eyes. "You made a deal with the great Kyuubi no Kitsune. But I guess if that is the only way to get tails, then I will never get them," Hinata stated dejectedly. Suddenly a voice spoke inside Naruto's head and said, "Kit, tell her that there is another way for her to get tails. Ask if she is willing to be marked as your mate. That will transform her like I transformed you when I merged with you. I like this girl. She wasn't bothered at all by the slaughter that happened in front of her, and she wants to have tails like you, without caring about the consequences of being seen with tails. She is definitely a keeper, and that is the only reason I have brought this up to you. I will relay the drawbacks of doing this to you when you explain this to her," said Kurama. "Hinata-chan, Kurama told me to tell you that there is another way to get tails, but it comes with drawbacks." "There is. Please tell me about this other way," demanded Hinata. Naruto proceeded to explain the perks and drawbacks of being marked as a mate to a Kitsune Hanyu. With that done, he said, "I'll give you some time to." "I'll do it," Hinata said decisively. What? Hinata rolled her lavender eyes and said, I said that I'll do it. Mark me as your mate, Naruto-kun. I will never meet another person like you, and I want to be with you and like you forever. Okay, if you say so. Naruto leaned down in front of Hinata and bit down into her soft flesh right above where her would develop. Naruto then injected a great deal of Kurama's chakra into her through the bite and stepped back. He watched in shock as a tattoo of a nine-tailed fox was burned onto her skin surrounding the bite mark. Then both of their chakras exploded around them, with Naruto's being orange-colored and Hinata's being lavender-colored. Their bodies began to feel really weird all of a sudden and they were forced to shut their eyes. Then their chakra finally receded and they opened their eyes. They gasped at what they saw before them. They no longer saw their 5-year-old bodies, and instead saw the bodies of their 18-year-old selves. Then their 18-year-old selves started producing what they produce best. Hormones. And lots of them. Feeling this, they saw each other in a completely new light. Hina-chan, Naruto-kun. They stepped up to each other and engaged in a very passionate kiss. Disengaging from their first kiss, Naruto and Hinata stood there gasping for much-needed air. Their tails, without them knowing, had wrapped around each other. They stood there for a minute gazing into each other's eyes until Naruto finally broke the silence. That was, amazing. Answered Hinata for him. And yet anyways, Kurama never said anything about us getting older. I wonder why we did. Maybe you should ask him about it. I know what you're going to ask me. I'm not deaf. And as for your answer, no, I am not sure as to why it happened. But it did happen, and I've given you the knowledge to be competent 18-year-old humans. Said Kurama as his voice ran through Naruto's head. What was that voice? Asked Hinata. You heard him? Replied Naruto with surprise evident in his voice. Yes, she can hear me now that she's your mate. Anyways, on to more important matters. Like the fact that you are both 18 with hormones running rampant throughout your bodies. We need to do something about that, or else you two will end up doing things together that will be looked down upon, especially if you two choose to henge back into your 5-year-old selves, which is what I would recommend for the time being. So what I propose is that I put a special kitsune henge on you two for as long as you intend to keep your secret from everyone else. This henge will mimic what your bodies would actually go through as they age from your actual age until you release it. It will take little to nothing from your chakra reserves and you won't have to worry about focusing to keep it up. To better hide you two, it will come up with a false persona that you two will be able to use to further keep people from getting suspicious about what you actually are. Does this sound acceptable? Kurama finally asked. I suppose so, but will we be able to revert back to our actual bodies when we are alone? Asked Naruto. I suppose I will let you two do that, but since I am in control of it, I will only put it down when I know that you two are truly alone with no chance of being interrupted. That's good, I can feel that I will miss having my tails already. Said Hinata. Okay, since that's cleared, I will use the jutsu now. Demonic arts, kitsune mask. With that said, Naruto and Hinata were engulfed in two big clouds of smoke, and when it cleared they were back to their 5-year-old selves. I knew it, I miss my tails already. Said Hinata sadly. Quit complaining. Anyways, I told the kid here that I would train him. Since you're his mate, I guess I have to train you too. I will come up with a training schedule for you two to follow tomorrow. In the meantime, you two should probably hurry back home, especially you, Vixen. Knowing your family, I would say be prepared for the worst, as they won't like the fact that you have been gone so long without them knowing exactly where you are. And remember, just follow the way your mask acts, and you will be fine. Also, Vixen, you don't need to worry about that weak seal that they use on your family anymore. You are immune to such a weak seal. If they try and brand you with it, will be recast upon whoever is trying to place it on you. Hi, thank you, Kurama-sensei. With that, Hinata turned and picked up her mostly clean clothes and put them on. Saying one last goodbye to Naruto, she left to go home. Well, Kit, I guess you should go home too. It's been a long day, and you need a good rest. Hi, Kurama-sensei. Kurama-sensei. I could get used to this. Flashback no jutsu, ki. And that's how it went, old man. We followed the masks that we were given to us, and we lived our lives until this point. The only change was that Hina-chan and I would go train with Kurama-sensei every time we were able to get together. Concluded Naruto. Well, that is quite the story, but you said you have tails, why don't you currently have them? Asked Hiruzen. With a giggle, Hinata said for the same reason that we didn't have them before, we are still under a henge. Naruto and Hinata nodded to each other, and they made a hand sign and said Kai smoke billowed off of them once again, and after clearing there stood Naruto and Hinata in their full Hanyu glory. Well, I must say that certainly is something that I have never seen before. Now on to more recent business. What exactly happened tonight with the Scroll of Seals? And for that matter, why did you two fail the academy test when quite clearly you two are powerful enough to be genin? Naruto proceeded to explain that night's events but omitted the fact that he copied the Scroll of Seals. As to why Hina-chan and I failed, we did on purpose so that Mizuki would approach us. We always knew that Mizuki was a power-hungry and manipulative bastard, so we figured that he would use downtrodden academy failures to do his dirty work for him. And who better to do it than us? He always thought of me as a demon, so he could care less if I died on his little mission, and I bet that he was just going to sell Hina-chan to the cloud for some quick cash. Explained Naruto. That seems like a plausible explanation, but to risk your becoming ninja on capturing one traitor? That is the part that I don't fully understand. Well, you see, old man, if I am to become Hokage someday, I need to be self-sacrificing for the good of the village and its people. If I was able to catch even one traitor for the good of the village, at the cost of my becoming a ninja, I would gladly do it. As would Hina-chan. Explained Naruto once more. Upon hearing this, Hiruzen chuckled and said, the will of fire burns brightly within you too. I believe that you will make a great Hokage one day, Naruto. Thank you very much, old man. Before we go, there are two things that I would like to ask for. First is that I be placed on a team with just Hinata and with no sensei, since our sensei lives inside of us. That is acceptable, as the previous teams had been made without you two in them since you had failed. What is your second request? Taking a deep breath, Naruto said, second is that I would like to claim my rightful inheritance of the Namake's clan estate, and all belongings connected to it, as well as any last letters that my mother and father left for me. Upon hearing this, Hiruzen's pipe clattered onto his desk, and his jaw dropped with only one word on his lips. How? Examining Hiruzen's shocked expression caused Naruto and Hinata to burst out into laughter. His expression was absolutely priceless. Geez, you should see your face, old man, stated Naruto through his laughter. A/N. For those One Piece fans out there, Hiruzen's face looks like what Enel looked like after he first tried to use L Thor on Luffy when they first got to the arc Maxim. I love that face, it's hilarious. Regaining control of his expression, Hiruzen cleared his throat and asked, so how do you two know of an SSS class rank secret that very few people have the privilege of knowing about? It's simple, old man, we both met him, stated Naruto. Impossible. He's been dead since you were born, said Hiruzen. That may be true, Hokage-sama, but you know that Yondaime-sama was an absolute genius when it came to seals, stated Hinata. So what are you to saying, that he sealed part of himself away so that he could talk to you when you grew up? That's impossible. That's actually exactly what happened, old man. My father sealed part of himself into the seal that he used to seal Kurama, as a failsafe. A failsafe for what? Asked Hiruzen. A failsafe for if the seal was ever to be ripped off or break, answered Naruto. I see, so I take it that you met him when you were about to rip off the seal the first time? Actually no, I was in a rush, so I sort of ignored him at that time. He did try to stop me though, but I was too preoccupied with saving Hina-chan's life. So when did you meet him if not then? It was a few days after the event, and Hina-chan and I met at a secret spot so we could begin our training. Flashback no jutsu. Alright, you two, I hope you bought new clothes for your 18-year-old selves, because what you are currently wearing will be ripped to shreds if I turn you back right now. Kurama's voice echoed through the two mates' minds. Hi, Kurama-sensei. We have both bought new clothes for our new bodies. We have also been working on speaking to each other through the mind link that we now have, replied Hinata in her head. Good, now strip so that we may begin. Hinata and Naruto stripped their clothes off and Kurama released the hinge. With two loud poofs, Naruto and Hinata were back to their Hanyu selves and they immediately rushed towards each other and kissed deeply. Kurama rolled his metaphorical eyes and thought, humans and their damn hormones. Enough of that, you two. Get dressed in your new clothes so that we may begin your training. Naruto and Hinata looked a bit depressed but said, fine, Kurama-sensei. They both got dressed and admired each other's new outfits. Naruto couldn't help but stare at the large amount of cleavage that Hinata was showing off in her lavender tank top. Hinata, on the other hand, couldn't help but stare at the muscles that Naruto was showing through his black shirt. I know that we have seen each other naked before, but I have to say, Hina-chan, you look really damn sexy in that outfit, stated Naruto, who was still staring at Hinata's cleavage. You don't look half bad yourself, Rudo-kun. Hinata replied teasingly. Alright, snap out of it, you two. Especially you, Kit. Ever since she put that shirt on, you've been in some sort of trance, staring at your mates, Kurama said with annoyance laced in his voice. Kit. Naruto snapped the hell out of it. Kurama roared. Who? What? When? Where? How? Finally I have your attention. I'm going to need you to summon me to your world so that we can begin. To perform the summoning jutsu you need a blood sacrifice. So just bite your thumb and then perform the hand signs of boar, dog, bird, monkey, and then ram and slam your palm into the ground. I am a bit unique as I am within you, so you won't need to use any chakra to summon me. Nodding at Kurama's instructions, Naruto bit his thumb, made the seals, and slammed his palm into the ground. Kuchios no jutsu. The seals spread across the ground and there was a large puff of smoke. When the smoke cleared, there were 3 people standing there when they hadn't been standing there before. The first was a tall and well-built man with a pitch-black kimono that had an orange flame pattern that wrapped around the kimono. He had long spiky orange hair that reached down to his lower back. A/N. Picture Madara's hairstyle but the color of Kurama's fur. He had 6 whisker marks, 3 on each cheek. The most striking thing about him, though, was his 9 orange tails with white tips that flailed lazily about. If you looked closely at the top of his head, you would see the tips of 2 fox ears sticking out of his hair. You could tell just by standing around this man that he was extremely powerful, and not someone that you would want to mess with. The way he held his body demanded authority, and the aura that was coming off of this man would make the weak grovel at his knees. This man was the human form of the great Kyuubi no Kitsune, Kurama. The second man was a tall, lithe man with a mess of untamable blonde hair, and the most piercing blue eyes that anyone had ever seen. He had a leaf hydeate around his forehead and wore the standard Jonin outfit. On top of that outfit he wore a long white haori that had a flame pattern skirting the bottom, and it had the kanji for Yandame Hokage printed in black on its back. This man oozed calm confidence, and his aura would cause people to relax around him. This man was the Yandame Hokage, Minato Namikaze. The next person was a woman with long, beautiful red hair and deep violet eyes. She was wearing a solid dark blue kimono with white whirlpool designs along the sleeves and back. She had a very interesting aura. At some points it would be as calm and cool as Minato's, but it had a nasty habit of switching to an aura of dominance that rivaled Kurama's whenever she got angry or if someone said the wrong thing. This woman was Minato's loving wife, Kushina Uzumaki. I know that's Kurama sensei by the tales, whispered Hinata to Naruto, but that person looks like the Yandame Hokage. I have no clue who the woman is though. Meanwhile, Kurama was about to speak up to begin their training when Kushina shot him a death glare that made even him shudder. Fine, you can talk to him first, Kurama grumbled, but don't take too long. We have a lot of training to do and not too much time to do it. Hearing this, Kushina and Minato took a step towards Naruto with a smile on their faces. Do we know each other? I can't help but feel that you two are familiar somehow, but I can't quite put my finger on it, asked Naruto. Kushina suddenly smashed her fist down on Naruto's skull, making a large clong noise. Hinata was about to jump in and help Naruto when Kushina enveloped Naruto in a large hug and said, "Do we know you?" "Of course we know you. We are your parents, Debane. I'm your mom, Kushina Uzumaki, and this amazing man is your father, Minato Namikaze. And my parents?" "I have parents?" asked Naruto in shock. "Of course you have parents, sweetie. What did you think that you suddenly popped into existence?" remarked Kushina. "I have parents," repeated Naruto. "I have parents," he repeated again, excitedly. Suddenly Naruto broke down and started to cry. Hinata immediately jumped next to him and started to console him. "What's wrong, Naruto-kun?" she asked quietly. "There's nothing wrong, Hina-chan. It's just that I'm so happy that I have actual parents. That's something that I've wanted my entire life. And to think that my dad is the fourth Hokage. These aren't tears of sadness, Hina-chan. These are tears of pure joy," answered Naruto. Minato had been happily watching his son, but he decided to speak up. "Naruto, we won't be able to stay here indefinitely. Our situation is similar to Kurama's. We sealed a part of ourselves in you as a failsafe in case Kurama tried to break out. I was to appear and stop that from happening, along with remaking the seal. Your mother was to appear when you would try to take control of Kurama's power. She would help you do that. However, neither of us ever expected that you would merge with Kurama, so we have nothing to use the power on since either of those things happened. So instead you can treat us like a summoning jutsu like Kurama. You can summon us to help you in a fight, or if you want us to just talk, or if you need advice. You don't need to fill in any events of your life because we were with you and we watched your life unfold, so we know what is going on. However, unlike Kurama, we cannot speak with you through our minds since we are not merged into one being. To talk to us, either summon us or go down to your mindscape, although I would prefer to be summoned. Now that you know why that we are here, do you two have any questions that you would like us to answer?" "Yes, I do. First is, how did you two fall in love?" said Naruto. Blushing deeply, Kushina explained the story of how they fell in love. A/N, just like the anime. Second is, why did you seal Kurama into me? I don't hold anything against you two for it, and I am actually rather thankful that you two did. Minato proceeded to explain the night of Naruto's birth, with Kurama piping up occasionally whenever he missed a fact. Finally, is there anything that I inherit from you two for being your son? Minato was thoughtful for a moment, and then said, when you turned 18 or got to Jonin, you were supposed to be told of your heritage and inherit everything that we owned, including the Namikaze clan estate, as well as a seat on the clan council. However, you are technically 18 now, and I don't see why you shan't get it now. If I may say so, Minato, in my opinion we should give him his inheritance when these two decide that it is time to drop their masks. If a 5-year-old kid just walked into the council and demanded that he was the son of the legendary Yellow Flash and that he wanted his inheritance, the council would die of laughter. So I suggest that he waits until he is powerful enough to back up his claim before he runs in. You two can help me train them, and you could even teach him that jutsu that you used, that you copied from the tailed beast ball and based it upon. Or even better, you could teach him the jutsu that earned you your moniker, the Yellow Flash. How does that sound? That sounds like a great idea. I will begin teaching them the Rasengan immediately. However, I will not teach them the Hiraishin no Jutsu until they reach Genin. If anyone ever saw an academy student use that jutsu, they would freak out," replied Minato. "You're saying that people won't freak out when they see a Genin using Hiraishin? You must have flashed around too many times if you think that. You created that jutsu and only taught it to your 3 most trusted aides, and even they can't do it near to the extent that you do. Face it, people are going to freak if they see him use it regardless of what age he is. How about you teach it to him, but he is only to use it as an absolute last resort?" "Fine, that's reasonable. Now we should get to training. The first thing I'm going to teach you is the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With both of your insane chakra reserves, you should get it down in no time, and it will speed up your training speed by 1000% due to the memory retention of shadow clones," said Minato. With that, they finally began training. Flashback no Jutsu Ki, and that old man is how I learned of my parents. We have decided to discard our masks now, so we have come to get my inheritance, concluded Naruto. It seems as if I have no choice. Here are the letters that your parents left me to give you. All of the money that you now have is locked in the Namikaze clan vault, in the Namikaze compound. I assume you know where it is? Asked Hiruzen. Replied Naruto. I will take him there, Hokage-sama. It is quite close to the Hyuga compound. However, I do not intend on returning to the Hyuga compound except to gather the little amount of valuables that I have there, said Hinata. Very well, off you two go. And you two can tell Irika everything. Just be sure to use those seals that you have used here. Hi, Hokage-sama, replied Hinata. But wait! Isn't there supposed to be some sort of key that lets us into the compound or something? Naruto asked. Normally there would be, but your dad never used the main door to get into the compound. He would always just flash in and flash out. However, I'm sure he did something that would let you in. His steel mastery was unparalleled, replied Hiruzen. Fine, I guess we'll just have to stop by the gate and see what's there, said Naruto. With that, they deactivated the security seals and left to go to the compound. 5 minutes later, Namikaze compound. Naruto and Hinata were standing in front of the huge, solid metal gate that was the entrance to the Namikaze compound. It looked like an ordinary gate except for the fact that it had no handles. There aren't any handles, so I guess that there must be some sort of seal to allow entry. Hina-chan, can you check for the presence of any seals? I don't want to touch the door and have it blow up in my face, remarked Naruto. Sure, Rido-kun. Byakugan. Rido-kun, there are a multitude of complex seals covering the door, and there is a spherical barrier surrounding the entire clan compound. From the limited understanding of seals that I have, I would say that this door reacts to chakra, but I don't know in what way it will react. If it reacts to chakra, then the seals should show up if I do this, said Naruto, as he placed his finger on the door and injected some of his chakra into the door. In an instant, the door was covered in a huge amount of very complex seals. I see. This matrix is so simple, yet so complex at the same time. The Yondaime really was an absolute sealing genius. I think I've figured out what to do, but first let me mark your chakra as allowed for entry, Hina-chan. Naruto took Hinata's hand and held his own up to the door, and then flowed his chakra through the door. The seals glowed for a moment, and then completely disappeared. Naruto stood back and smirked. I know now what Rido-kun. Now we walk in, Hina-chan. Naruto then grabbed Hinata's hand and dragged her straight through the metal door. Once on the other side, Naruto looked at Hinata and chuckled at Hinata's completely confused face. I know what just happened, asked the confused Hinata. We walked through the door, Hina-chan, but the door was solid metal. I told you that my father was a sealing genius, didn't I? Seals are an amazing thing, and it's sad that Fuinjutsu is becoming a lost art. I understand that now, Rido-kun, but I'm still getting used to the fact that I just was dragged through a solid object. If you think that a phasing seal is weird, you probably shouldn't delve much further into Fuinjutsu than you already have. I've seen some really weird experimental stuff, like a seal that turns somebody's head into a cabbage. Hinata's sweat dropped and said, I think I'm going to stick to knowing the basics of Fuinjutsu now. Anyways, did you notice the root member who was spying on us? Yeah, I did, replied Naruto, and I wanted him to report to his boss so that a council meeting would be held. I think it would be fun if we crashed it, don't you, Hina-chan? Well, that will be so much fun to reveal our true selves to the whole council at once. We should go in under a kitsune illusion so no one notices that we are there, before interrupting a serious part of the meeting. I can only imagine how angry Hayashi will be when we show up, replied Hinata gleefully. Naruto proceeded to make a shadow clone and ordered it to find out when the meeting would be held. The clone hinged into a bird and flew off. Hinata then made 5 clones and told them to gather her valuables from her room in the Hyuga estate. They put themselves under a kitsune illusion that made them invisible and left to fulfill their task. Okay, now that the business is done, let's check out our new home, Hina-chan, said Naruto as they entered the main compound. As Naruto and Hinata entered the main compound, the first thing they noticed was the huge amount of dust. The second thing that they noticed was a small table with a scroll on it in the middle of the room. Naruto walked over to the table and picked up the scroll, blew off the dust and carefully unrolled it. He then read aloud to Hinata, Naruto, if you are reading this, then that means that we are dead and that you have been notified of your lineage and inheritance. While we are sorry that we couldn't be there for you, I hope you can understand why we couldn't be there and why you were not told of your lineage from the start. We do, however, want you to know that we loved you and will always love you even if we aren't there physically. When you do decide to take up the Namikaze family name, I hope you will do so proudly. If and when you do decide to marry someone, we want to make sure that you choose someone who brings out the best in both of you. And for whatever reason, if that person is Kushina's best friend Hitomi Hyuga's daughter, bring up Clan Act 31.b if you are ever forced to defend her in a council meeting. If you bring that up and she agrees, you both will be untouchable by both the Hyugas and those idiots on the civilian council. I understand that they will probably try even still, especially that prick Hayashi, but I know all of the laws of Konoha by heart, and there are no loopholes to 31.b. I hope that you eventually do decide to continue the Namikaze bloodline, and I also understand that the Civilian Council will probably try to enact the Clan Restoration Act upon you. You may choose that you want multiple wives or you may not. The council will probably try to force you into choosing multiple wives, but in reality, they have no choice in the matter, as it is up to the clan head of the endangered clan to choose whether to follow the act or not. Since you are my only son, and I am probably dead, that automatically makes you the clan head and gives you a seat on the clan council. Anyways, enough of the boring clan stuff. We have left you the entirety of our jutsu library for you to view at your pleasure, and the Namikaze family fortune is sealed within the vault under the compound, along with a few special things. I hope that you will enjoy living at your new home and wish you luck in your life. With love, Minato Namikaze. Kushina Uzumaki. P.S. I understand that it has probably been a long time since anybody has entered the compound, and that it is probably quite dusty. I have taken the liberty of sealing in a small dust cleaning jutsu within this scroll that will activate whenever this scroll is closed. So you can keep this scroll as a portable dust cleaner. After he finished reading the scroll, Naruto rolled it up and there was a bright flash of light. When the flash died down, there was not a speck of dust in sight within the entire compound. And that's a small dust cleaning jutsu? Asked Naruto aloud in amazement. I think that a big one would clean the dust out of the entirety of Konoha. Hinata was thoughtful for a moment, and then said that jutsu sort of looked like a space-time jutsu. In other words, I think that the dust was transported somewhere, not just poof out of existence. I guess you're right, Hina-chan. But where would my dad transport that much dust to? Meanwhile at the Hyuga compound, Hayashi's study. Hayashi had just left his study to go to a clan meeting about the fact that Hinata still wasn't home, when out of the corner of his eye he saw a flash of light from under the door. Curious, he opened the door and was greeted with a wall of 13-year-old dust that quickly tried to escape through the open door. He slammed the door shut to prevent the rush of dust and called to a branch member that was walking by. Get a maid or 30 to clean my study while I am at the meeting. It had better be clean by time I'm done with my meeting. Hi, Hayashi-sama. If I may ask, why does your study need to be cleaned? It was just cleaned yesterday, sir. You will see when you clean it. Now I have a meeting to attend to and I will not hesitate to say that it was you who held me here if I am late. So do you have any more stupid questions? No, sir. Good. With that said, Hayashi walked off to the clan meeting, thinking when I find out who did this there will be hell to pay. Back at the Namikaze compound. That's a good question, Riddle-kun, but the dust is not our problem anymore, so don't worry about it, said Hinata sweetly. If you say so, Hina-chan. Now let's go and explore our new home. But first let's dispel our henge. We can be ourselves in here. Naruto and Hinata dispelled their henge and then started to wander through the estate. Since they were in the main compound, they started with the master bedroom. They then checked out the master bathroom, which was connected to the bedroom. Naruto was overjoyed at the size of the bath and that he would now get to shower with consistently hot water. Hinata was thinking devious thoughts of how she could make it look like an accident while walking in on a bathing Naruto. After exiting the bathroom into the main bedroom again, they encountered the clones that Hinata had sent to retrieve her belongings. They had stopped by Naruto's apartment as well and grabbed the things that they deemed necessary for Naruto to survive, so no instant ramen, as well as her precious items. The stop at Naruto's was unplanned, so one of the clones had made 3 more clones to help. A/N, a clone cloning? It's cloneception. The originals helped the clones put away the stuff before the clones dispelled. Naruto and Hinata then left and continued their walk. They stopped by the well-stocked dojo before Hinata said that she was getting tired. It was 2 a.m. at that point. Just then Naruto received the memories of the clone he had sent out earlier. Apparently, the council meeting has been scheduled for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I see that you are tired, Hina-chan, and I'm pretty tired too, so let's head back to the bedroom and get some rest. We can explore the rest of this place tomorrow, MK Riddle-kun, responded Hinata tiredly with a large yawn following. They headed back to the master bedroom, and Hinata kicked off her shoes and flopped onto the bed. In an instant she was asleep. Naruto just chuckled at his mate's actions and took his time to wash up a little before removing his clothes down to his boxers. Walking up to the bed, he noticed that Hinata was completely sprawled out on top of the bed. He gently lifted up Hinata before using his tails to pull back the covers and placed her on the bed. He then laid next to her before pulling the covers back over them. He muttered sweet dreams, my vixen, before drifting into the land of sleep. The next day, 8 a.m., Hinata woke up to find that while they were sleeping, their tails had intertwined with each other, and that she wouldn't be able to get up without Naruto's help with untangling their tails. Hinata then kissed Naruto gently on the lips and whispered, Riddle-kun, wake up. It seems we have a slight problem. Naruto, who had been awakened by Hinata's kiss, rubbed his eyes and said, I could get used to waking up like that. What's the problem, Hina-chan? Hinata giggled and said, well, Riddle-kun, it seems that our tails don't want either of us to leave the bed and get ready this morning. Can't we just stay in bed then? I haven't had that good of a sleep in, well, ever. Sorry, Riddle-kun, but we have to crash the council today, remember? Grumbling a little, Naruto said, fine. Let's get ourselves untangled and washed up, then we can go visit the kitchen and see if there is anything to eat. With a little bit of difficulty and a little blushing, Naruto and Hinata were able to untangle their tails. Hinata nearly got a nosebleed upon seeing Naruto in his boxers, before leaving to shower. She tried, albeit unsuccessfully, to keep the dirty thoughts of Naruto and his boxers out of her head while she showered. Naruto walked off into one of the guest rooms and used the shower in there. Hinata meanwhile was quite glad that she was in a shower because she got quite the nosebleed when she used her Byakugan to check on Naruto and saw him showering. She stared for a while before snapping to her senses and finishing her shower. Naruto finished his shower and headed back to the master bedroom, before knocking on the bathroom door and asking Hina-chan, "Are you done in there?" "Sure, come in, Ridoku," was her response. Naruto opened the door and was treated to the sight of Hinata wrapped in only a towel. Naruto noticed this and froze like a deer in headlights. Finally finding his voice, he said, Hina-chan? I thought you said that you were done." Giggling, Hinata said, "What's the matter, Ridoku? Do you not like what you see?" "And no, it's not that. It's just, I'm wearing enough for when it's just you around." Hinata then dropped her voice to a low, sultry tone and continued, "In fact, no clothes at all is enough clothes with just you around." Naruto froze again and slipped into a trance that wasn't broken until Hinata had gotten the rest of her clothes on and said, "Come on, Ridoku, let's see what is in the kitchen." "Alright," was his response as Hinata dragged him towards the kitchen. They found that the kitchen had several labeled pantries with a variety of choices. Curious, Hinata opened the one that said strawberries and found that the pantry was empty except for a small sealing matrix on the bottom. Even more curious now, Hinata injected some of her chakra into the seal, and to her pleasant surprise, a completely fresh strawberry poofed into existence with a small cloud of smoke. Taking a bite out of the strawberry, Hinata said, "This is amazing, Ridoku. This strawberry must be at least 13 years old, and yet it tastes completely fresh." She then eyed several pantries' labels and set to work. Within 15 minutes she had made a batch of piping hot cinnamon rolls and a huge bowl of homemade ramen and set them out on the table for them to eat. "Now, Ridoku, you have to understand that today is special and that I will not make you ramen for breakfast very often. Do you understand?" said Hinata as she poured them both a bowl of ramen. "Ah, but Hina-chan, ramen is a gift from the gods, just like the kawarimi was a gift from the sacred log," complained Naruto. "If you say so, Ridoku, but I won't give you your ramen until we come to an understanding," she said, holding Naruto's bowl away from him. "Okay, fine, you win, Hina-chan," replied Naruto in defeat. "Good boy, here you go." She gave the bowl to Naruto, who then sucked it down in record time. And then another. And then another. "Hinata, I have to honestly say that your homemade ramen rivals Ichiraku's and your cinnamon buns could quickly become one of my new favorite foods. I'm flattered that you would think that my ramen is as good as theirs, Ridoku, but I did spend years getting the recipe just right so that you would like it. I am also glad that you like my cinnamon buns, since they are my favorite food and I will make them quite often." They spent the rest of their meal chatting about various ideas for pranks. They then cleaned up their dishes and checked the time. It was 9:45, so they headed out to the gate, hinged into their 13-year-old selves, and then put on a kitsune illusion that rendered themselves invisible before heading out to the Hokage Tower. A/N. If I were evil, I would end this chapter right here, but I said I would get to the council in the last chapter, so the story goes on. And hey, you people wanted longer chapters, right? Hokage Tower, Council Meeting Room, 10 a.m. The council meeting room was a large room with a long, circular table in the middle of it. A/N. Think the Gakage Summit meeting table, but a lot bigger. Currently sitting at the table on one side were the clan heads of the Nara, Yamanaka, Akimichi, Aburame, Inazuka, and Hyuga clans. On the other side of the table were the members of the civilian council along with the Hokage's counselors and Danzo. Sitting in between the two sides was the Hokage. The Hokage cleared his throat to silence the quiet muttering of the civilian council and said, "So what is the reason that you have called a council meeting this time?" A counselor spoke up and said, "Well, Hokage-sama, it has come to our attention that the dem he was silenced by the look Hiruzen gave him heir Uzumaki boy and the Hyuga heiress were seen entering the Namikaze clan compound last night. We would like to know why they were seen doing so." Upon hearing of his daughter, Hayashi perked up and said, "Yes, I would very much like to know why my daughter was seen last night with that boy. Especially since she never came home from the academy yesterday." The silence and tension that followed was intense. The Hokage opened his mouth to speak when a cute giggle rang through the air. Instantly, the shinobi's side was on alert, with kunai at the ready. Hayashi had his Byakugan activated and scanned the room. He didn't see anything. "There's no one there," stated Hayashi. Suddenly another giggle rang out, and a feminine voice was heard. "Poor Hayashi. He thinks that his weak Byakugan would be able to see us." A male voice then said, "Don't you think that you should treat him with a little more respect? After all, he is your FA. MMPPPHHH. The center of the room shimmered and revealed a 13-year-old Hinata passionately kissing Naruto. Hayashi was outraged. The civilian side was in chaos. The shinobi side just looked confused. The Hokage was calm but had a grin on his face. To say that Hayashi was outraged would be a huge understatement. He was beyond pissed. First, his failure of a daughter didn't come home after the academy. Then he learned that she had actually failed the graduation exam. A Hyuga failing the academy graduation exam was unheard of. They were the elite of the elite. They were all-seeing. They were the Hyuga, the most powerful clan in all of Konoha. But to hear that his daughter had failed the exam made the normally controlled head of the Hyuga lose his cool. Next, his study was magically filled with an insane amount of dust, and then he got called to a clan meeting, only to learn that his daughter had been seen entering an unenterable place with the demon boy. That bit of info had certainly gotten his attention. But that was when the two in question had suddenly appeared in the middle of a very well-guarded room, the very room that they were meeting in, and to top it all off, his daughter had appeared by silencing the demon with a very large kiss. Not only that, but Hayashi was pretty sure that his daughter had insulted his Byakugan. Hayashi was very, very angry, and after he got this all sorted out, someone was going to feel his wrath. Most likely his daughter. Hinata, Hayashi said to the still kissing couple in a deathly cold voice, "You are to separate from that thing at once and return to your room immediately. You will wait there until I have decided your very severe punishment." Hinata broke away from kissing Naruto, much to the latter's disappointment, and turned to her father, and said, "I don't think I will, father." She said the word father with a huge amount of venom in her voice. She turned back to Naruto and said, "You were saying that I should treat that man with more respect because he is my father, right, Ridokuen? Well, I only give respect to the people who have earned it from me. That list is pretty small so far, and includes you, your parents, Kurama-sensei, and Hokage-sama." Turning back to Hayashi, Hinata said, "I will not be returning to the Hyuga compound, father, because I have a new home now. I also call upon Clan Act 31.b. At this Hiruzen spoke up and said Clan Act 31.b is a very rarely used law. It states that a heir, or in this case heiress, may choose to hand off her title and all associated privileges to someone else in the same clan, and at the same time denounce their own name, and have another clan give them their name. That is correct, Hokage-sama. I choose to give my title of Hyuga heiress to my sister Hanabi. I also choose to take up residence, and the name of the..." Hinata was cut off by Hayashi stating, "I know of Clan Act 31.b, and I also know of its only weakness. That is that in order to join the new clan, you must have written permission from the entirety of the clan that you are trying to join. If even one member of the clan does not want you, then you will not be able to join said clan. So what clan have you tried to convince to let your pathetic self join them?" Hinata upon hearing this just giggled and said, "It wasn't hard to convince this clan to let me join. I choose to join the Namikaze clan. I have the required signatures right here on this scroll." She took a scroll out and tossed it to the still grinning Hokage. The Hokage took the scroll out and looked over its one signature. He nodded and said, "The signature checks out. Hinata is no longer to be known as Hinata Hyuga, and is now to be known as Hinata Namikaze. That's impossible. The Namikaze have been extinct since the Yondaime died." "Let me see that scroll," Hayashi demanded. Shrugging, the Hokage tossed Hayashi the scroll. He unrolled it and read it. He got to the signature and dropped the scroll. It read Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Shaking in anger, he said, "You mean to say that this demon is the Yondaime's son? That is impossible." The Hokage laughed and said, "The civilian council has all the proof you need. In fact, the very reason that this meeting was called is all the proof you need." Naruto and Hinata were seen entering the Namikaze compound. A compound which is only enterable by those of Namikaze blood and those that they have chosen to be allowed to enter. If anyone else tries, they will meet a rather painful experience. Upon hearing this, Hayashi shut up and the civilian council was again in uproar. One pink-haired banshee's mother in particular said, "If he truly is the last of the Namikaze, I propose that we enact the Clan Restoration Act upon him. I propose that my Dao..." "No." Naruto cut her off. "I will not partake of the CRA. You don't have a choice, boy. Actually, I do. It is up to the clan head to decide if a member partakes of the CRA. And ever since my father died, I was and still am the new clan head of the Namikaze clan. And I say no. Hina-chan is my one and only mate," responded Naruto, shutting her up. Shikaku, upon hearing this, raised an eyebrow and his head off the desk and said, "That is an interesting choice of words, Naruto. Care to explain why you chose the word mate?" Naruto turned to Hinata and winked at her. Getting the signal, she took off the heavy jacket that she was wearing and revealed that she was wearing a low-cut magenta tank top, /N. What can I say? I like the idea of Hinata in tank tops. That showed off a great amount of her fox tattoo and cleavage. Turning back to Shikaku, he said, "I don't know, Shikaku-san. Can you explain why I used the word mate? If you're anything like your son, you should be able to figure it out." Shikaku scanned Hinata for a moment, and rested his eyes on her tattoo. Suddenly he raised his eyebrows, muttered troublesome, and put his head back on the desk. Shibi Aburame then chose to speak up for the first time and said, "It is logical to assume that Shikaku has indeed constituted the reason for your peculiar choice of words in his astute mind. However, not all have his caliber of intelligence, and it appears that said reason for your word choice is too troublesome for Shikaku to endeavor to explain to us all. So I ask you, Naruto, would you care to explain what exactly Shikaku has come to realize that is so troublesome? /N. I got to say, writing that part right there was a whole lot of fun thinking of the words that Shibi should use." Naruto grinned and said in fewer words, "Do you mean to say that Shikaku was able to figure it out but the rest of you weren't, and you would like an explanation?" Shibi nodded and Naruto continued, "Very well. That tattoo that Hina-chan has is no ordinary tattoo. It is a mate mark. I marked Hina-chan as my mate when we were both 5 years old. As for why Shikaku-san thinks this is troublesome, I think this should explain." Naruto nodded to Hinata and they both made a hand sign and said Kai. They were both engulfed in a cloud of smoke, and when it cleared, they were standing there in their full Hanyu forms. At this Hayashi finally found his voice and said, "So you corrupted my daughter? You truly are a demon. We should kill the boy and see if there is a way to reverse the process on my daughter." The civilian council also muttered in agreement with Hayashi. Hinata giggled and said, "We are half demons technically. And while you could think of it as corruption, I prefer to think that Rudo-kun enhanced me. There are so many benefits to being like this. It truly is a wonderful thing that he did for me. Oh, and there is no way to revert the process, so don't try." Hayashi upon hearing this started making the hand signs for the caged bird seal under the desk until Hinata cut him off by saying, "And stop making the signs for that stupid seal under your desk. It won't work. Or you could continue if you fancy the idea of that seal on your head. I certainly won't stop you then." Hayashi stopped making the seals and said, "Fine. Then we will just kill you both. I'll start with Hinata since she is a weak failure." Hayashi started to stand up when Naruto said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you. Hina-chan is stronger than me." Hinata pouted and said, "You're never going to let that go, are you, Rudo-kun?" "Just because I can do this." Hinata proceeded to hold her finger up and formed a Rasengan on it. She then expanded the Rasengan to the size of Jiraiya's massive Rasengan, the Rasengan he used against the Preta Path of Pain, before shrinking it down to the size of a pea, before dispelling it. "Doesn't mean that I'm stronger than you. After all, your biggest Rasengan is bigger than my biggest, so I prefer to think that we are of equal strength." Naruto grinned and said, Fine, Hina-chan. We are equal in strength, if you say so. I just can't help but agree with you when you make such a cute face like that." Hinata brightened up, giggled and said, "I know that, Rudo-kun, that's why I did that. I just have to remind you who is in control of our relationship every so often, so you don't get a big head. Anyways, I think that all of the topics that we wanted to be discussed have been covered, so I think we can head on home. I'm feeling pretty hungry, so how about I make us some lunch when we get there? But where are my manners to the council? How about you leave them a parting gift of your guests so that they won't get bored? What do you say, Rudo-kun?" Hiruzen upon hearing this started to panic a little and said, "I don't think that will be necessary, you two. I really don't want to deal with the paperwork that will inevitably get loaded onto my desk if you do that. So please, whatever you do, just don't do what I think that you are saying Naruto should do." Upon seeing Hiruzen's begging look, Naruto laughed and said, "How about I cut you a deal, old man? If I tell you the secret that will solve the issue of the paperwork, then I can summon them and let them do what they want. I promise you that they won't kill anyone. Only maim. So what do you say?" Hiruzen brightened up upon hearing his offer and said, "That sounds acceptable. So what is the answer to the Hokage's bane?" Naruto laughed again and said 2 words, "Old man." Shadow clones. Hiruzen's eyes widened with realization and he started pounding his head against the desk repeatedly saying, "Stupid, stupid, stupid, stupid." Naruto laughed, and Hinata giggled at his reaction. Naruto then went through some hand seals and bit his thumb, before slamming his palm against the ground and shouting Kuchio-sen no Jutsu. The room was engulfed in a cloud of smoke, which cleared to reveal a pissed-off Kushina being held back by a slightly irritated Minato, and a grinning Kurama. "Now remember, you guys, I said to the old man that you could maim, but not kill. Let me revise that. Since you have Kurama-sensei here with you, you may kill, but make sure they are alive in the end. Okay?" affirmed Naruto as he and Hinata walked out the door, placing themselves in their 13-year-old hinge as they went. With Naruto and Hinata gone, the civilian council was seriously starting to sweat at what they had just heard his say. "Minato, sweetie, please let me go. I only want to hurt them a little bit," said Kushina as she struggled against Minato's strong grip. Now Kushina, maybe we should hear any excuses that the council has for their actions before we do anything violent," said Minato as he held her back. An ill-fortunate council member then chose to speak up and said, "Excuses? Ha! What sort of excuse do we need? That boy is a demon, and now the girl is one too. They should be sentenced to death immediately." The other council members and Hayashi nodded in agreement. "Bad idea." Minato upon hearing this finally snapped. They insulted his son and his daughter-in-law for the last time. So he did the worst thing that he could possibly do to the council. He released his grip on Kushina. Instantly chakra chains flew from Kushina's back, pinning the council members to their chairs. Kurama signaled Kushina to hold on for a moment as he pulled out something from his black kimono. It was an object not often seen in the Narutoverse. It was a cell phone. He punched a few numbers into the phone and held it to his head as it rang. "Hey, Shinigami, how are you doing? The kid told me that I could kill some people but that they had to stay alive in the end. So do I have your permission to do my kill revive rekill thing that I love to do? You can play with them as much as you want while they're dead, they really deserve it. I've got permission? Great, see you later. Maybe we can go on a killing spree for old time's sakes later," said Kurama to his best friend in his phone before hanging up and putting his phone back into his kimono. Looking back to the impatiently waiting Kushina, he nodded and said, "Please continue, Kushina. Their screams will be music to my ears." A/N, yes, the Shinigami is Kurama's best friend. They met after one particularly nasty slaughter, and became fast friends. The favor Kurama called in is a pretty common one. He likes to kill people, then revive them, then kill them again. I got that idea from another fanfic. Alright, Kurama, I've decided that I'm going to summon her. They deserve it, and since I don't have to worry about them staying dead, she'll get all the exercise that she wants. After she has her fun, then it's my turn, and after I'm done, then you can do anything else that you want to do to them," said Kushina. Minato heard what she said and flew through some hand seals and shouted Fuinjutsu, liquid sealing barrier. Hiruzen was confused at why Minato did this and asked him why he did. Minato responded by saying, "Do you want the Hokage tower to be soaked through with blood?" Upon hearing this, several of the civilian council members pissed themselves, but they couldn't help but wonder who her was. That's when Kushina flew through some hand signs, bit her thumb, slammed her palm against the ground and yelled Kuchios, Oinai Niko. Now those of you who understand a little Japanese will know that she said summoning demon cat. While most people would think that she meant to summon Matatabi, the Nibi Bijou, they would be wrong. While she could in fact summon Matatabi with Yujito's permission, what Kushina was summoning was worse, far worse. When the smoke cleared, standing there on its haunches was the cat known as the Genin's Bane. Standing there was the fire daimyo's wife's cat, Tora. Upon seeing this, the council members just laughed and said, "That's the best you can do? A pathetic little kitty? We were worried for nothing." Kushina just grinned and said, "Tora, sick em." Tora let out a vicious snarl and flew at the nearest council member. Claws cleaved effortlessly through flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Screams filled the room and Tora leapt to her next victim. The total carnage that ensued was absolutely horrific. Tora actually succeeded in killing every member of the civilian council. She also noticed that something was off with the old man sitting at the end of the bench, so she jumped him. She ripped through the seals that Danzo had placed on his arm and scratched out each and every one of Danzo's implanted Sharingan eyes. Kurama, upon seeing those eyes, was instantly enraged and pretty much warped to him, and snapped his neck with a resounding crack. Kurama decided that Naruto wouldn't mind if Danzo stayed dead. Tora was satisfied with the exercise that she got and ran out the door, thankful for the chance to escape from her horrible owner. Hiruzen realized that he would have to send some genin out on a mission to catch her, but he resolved to pay the genin double what he had been paying them previously from now on to whoever accepted that mission. He was also extremely glad that Minato had put up his seals when he did. Who knew that those civilian council members could produce that much blood? It was obvious to him that they were in fact currently dead, when suddenly they all gasped for air as their hearts started pumping again. They looked around with absolute terror in their eyes. Obviously, the Shinigami had been doing his job of having fun with them extremely well before he decided to send them back. Now it was Kushina's turn for some fun. She smirked evilly as she sent some more chakra chains out and impaled each of the council members in Hayashi, A/N. Did you think I forgot about Hayashi? I did not. It's just Tora knew that she wouldn't be able to take on Hayashi without at least being slightly injured, so she didn't bother with attacking him, through their stomachs, arms, and legs, pinning them each against the wall. As their blood flowed, it was absorbed into Minato's seal and disappeared. Kushina then walked up to the first council member. She grabbed his arms and tore them out of his sockets. She then grabbed his hands and broke each finger, one at a time. Next she kicked out his knee sockets and smashed his femur with her foot. Then she pummeled his chest, shattering his ribs. Finally, to end it, she grabbed his head and twisted it, snapping his neck, killing him. She repeated this exact process for each of the council members and Hayashi. Finally satisfied with her work, she released her chains and took a step back. Once they had revived again, it was Kurama's turn. What he did to them was simple, yet extremely effective and painful. He used a special jutsu called Kitsune Arts, slow burning flame. This lit a small amount of fire onto each of the council members and Hayashi and slowly, and very painfully, spread across their entire bodies. Satisfied once the jutsu was used, he stood back and watched them flail around as the flames spread across their bodies until they each could take it no more, and they died just from the sheer sensation of the all-consuming pain that racked their bodies. This effectively cauterized their multiple wounds, stopping the bleeding of their bodies. The flames went out as soon as their victims died. Kurama turned to Minato, now the only remaining member of the summoned group who hadn't done anything to the council, and asked, "Well, I'm done. Is there anything that you would like to do before we head home?" Minato responded by saying, "I think that we have done enough, but there is one thing that I would like to do to Hayashi when he gets revived." They were revived a moment later and Minato walked over to Hayashi, who was trying to stand up, and delivered a fearsome punch to Hayashi's jaw, knocking him out. Satisfied, Minato turned and said, "That's for trying to put an insult to the fine art of Fuinjutsu onto my daughter-in-law." With that done, Minato nodded to Kushina and they both disappeared in a puff of smoke. Kurama turned to the Hokage and said, "They will all be fine. All of their broken bones were mended when I revived them, and my flames cauterized their wounds. They will just be in a fair amount of pain for the next month." With that said, he poofed away in a cloud of smoke. The shinobi side of the council were absolutely stunned, speechless as to what they had just watched unfold in front of them. They all silently resolved to tell their kids to never get on Naruto or Hinata's bad side. The Hokage cleared his throat to get everyone's attention and said, "Well, that was certainly something. You are all dismissed. I have paperwork to do and there is no reason for any of us to stay here longer." With that said, the Hokage and the shinobi side, minus Hayashi, sunshined away in a cloud of leaves, leaving the civilian council and Heishi to wallow in their well-deserved pain. Meanwhile at the Namikaze compound, Naruto and Hinata had just finished eating their lunch and were now sitting on the kitchen table, with Hinata straddling Naruto, and were engaged in a very passionate make-out session. Suddenly Kurama's voice popped up in both of their heads and said, "We are back in your mind. I don't think that you will have to worry about the council ever again. If anyone deserves to be called a demon after today, it is your mother, Naruto. The things that she did to them definitely have my stamp of approval on it. They should be calling her the red-haired demon from now on." Naruto and Hinata heard this but mostly ignored it as they continued their make-out session. Naruto and Hinata had just finished their make-out session on the kitchen table, and were now deciding what they wanted to do with the day. Team assignments were not going to be given out until the next day, so they had the whole day to do whatever they wanted. While they didn't know what team that they were going to be put on, they decided that they would show up anyways so that they could reveal their true selves to their classmates. Besides, they were curious as to what the other teams would be. It would be good knowledge to have in case they ever had to work with another team. "So what do you want to do today, Hina-chan?" asked Naruto. Hinata was thoughtful for a moment before she answered, "Well, Ritokun, I was thinking that since we didn't have time last night to finish exploring, we could do that today. Also, I think that we should visit the vault so that we can fill our wallets, along with seeing what your father meant in his letter when he said a few special things that has me really curious." Naruto grinned and said, "Well, we could always summon him and ask him ourselves, but where's the fun in that?" "Exactly, Ritokun, so let's save the vault for last and take our time exploring the compound," replied Hinata. With that they set off. They first went back out front to where the main gate was, since they never really got the chance to inspect the opening area since when they first came in it was dark, and when they left this morning they were in a rush to get to the council meeting. They were pleasantly surprised with the state of the grounds. Normally, if you left grounds like this uncared for 13 years, you would find that the grass would have grown wild and there would be weeds everywhere. What Naruto and Hinata found was what appeared to be freshly cut grass, and instead of weeds everywhere, there were beautiful wildflowers growing all over the place. "I'm pleasantly surprised with the state of our lawn, Hina-chan. I guess my dad must have somehow invented a seal that keeps the grass cut at a certain length," commented Naruto. "I guess that is plausible, but I for one am really pleased with all of these beautiful wildflowers that have grown. I don't think that I have the heart to remove them. I am also amazed that I cannot see even one weed growing anywhere," said Hinata. "In that case we won't do anything to the lawn. We will let the wildflowers grow as they please, and the seal will keep our grass at a manageable length. So it seems that we will never have to do any lawn maintenance. I guess we just got lucky with the lack of weeds though." They then continued walking along the perimeter of the compound, observing that the state of the lawn seemed to be the same not just at the front of the compound, but everywhere. As they followed the compound wall along, the wall stopped and gave way to a mountain. Naruto and Hinata noticed an entrance to a cave that went inside the mountain. They entered it and walked along a passageway that was lit by what appeared to be seals giving off a pleasant blue light. The passageway opened up to reveal a huge cavern that had several steaming hot springs in it on one side, and on the other had a large waterfall that spilled from a crevice in the cave wall into a large crystal-clear lake of pure water. The room was lit by the same seals that emitted the blue light, and the light reflected off the surface of the lake, turning the whole room a brilliant shade of aquamarine. "This is absolutely amazing, Ritokun. To think that such a place of natural beauty existed in a clan compound is unheard of," said Hinata in awe. "You're right, Hina-chan, and it's ours to share with each other. No one else but us gets to experience this place. It will be our own private haven," said Naruto. At this Hinata turned to him and enveloped him in a huge kiss, which he returned with great fervor. They broke apart only because they were both running out of air. When they did so, Hinata noticed a passageway that was not the way that they had come in. Walking over to it with Naruto in tow, she noticed a carving on the wall next to the entrance of the passageway. She gasped when she realized what it was. "Ritokun, this carving is a map of a series of tunnels and passageways that lead everywhere in the village. There is even one that leads straight into the Hokage Tower," said Hinata in amazement. "You're right, Hina-chan," said Naruto. Then grinning mischievously, he said, "Think of all the pranks that we could get away with if we utilized these tunnels." Hinata giggled and said, "You're right, Ritokun. Konoha won't know what hit it. But that is something for another day. We should head back and finish checking out the compound before it gets late. We still have plenty we haven't seen." They then headed back out the way that they came in and continued following the perimeter. When they got to the back of the compound, they noticed that the area they were in was the garden. They explored the garden a little further and were delighted to find that it was filled with all sorts of fruits and vegetables on one side, and on the other it was filled with the most beautiful flowers that they had ever seen. Naruto picked one flower and gave it to Hinata and was rewarded with another passionate kiss. When they broke apart, Hinata took the flower she had been given and put it in her hair. Naruto, upon seeing this, said, "Wow, Hinata, you look even more beautiful with that flower in your hair." He was rewarded with another kiss, and Hinata mentally noted to herself that she would come by the garden every day for a different flower to put in her hair. They left the garden and continued along to the only side of the compound that they hadn't been, and found a large pool with several benches and lounge chairs situated around it. Seeing this, Naruto commented, "Why did my family need to get a pool when they had a lake that they could go to?" Hinata giggled and said, "I think it's so that in case your family ever had any guests, they didn't have to reveal a secret place while still allowing their guests to be able to relax in the water. Also, the lake doesn't have any sunlight, so girls wouldn't be able to lay in the sun and tan." They then proceeded to reach the front of the compound again and entered the main building. The first place that they visited inside was the clan's library. To say that it was big would be an understatement. The library was absolutely massive. There were thousands of scrolls, and they were all neatly alphabetized and separated by their content type. The jutsu section alone was 3/4 of the library's total contents. Naruto spoke up and said, "I don't think that I'd be able to even read through half of the jutsu scrolls in my lifetime, let alone master the jutsus in them." Hinata once again giggled and said, "You're forgetting one thing, Ritokun. We are both Hanyas, so we have all the time in the world. Also, we both know the shadow clone jutsu, so that will definitely speed up the process." Naruto just stood there dumbly and said, "Oh yeah, right. How did I forget about that?" Hinata just giggled and they moved on to the next section of the house, but not before leaving some shadow clones to start on learning the new jutsus. The next place was the study, which was a small room with a large desk in the middle. In the corner of the room were blank scrolls of all sorts of sizes. Seeing these, Naruto remembered something he had previously forgotten and said, "Hey, I can finally copy the scroll of seals with those." Naruto then took a scroll that was around the size of the scroll of seals and took out the piece of paper that he had used on the scroll of seals. Placing the paper on the blank scroll, he injected some chakra into it, and the kanji on the paper disappeared, indicating that the scroll was successfully copied. Naruto and Hinata both made some shadow clones and set them to work examining the scroll. The originals left the clones to their work and left the study to move on. First, they stopped by the kitchen where Hinata made them dinner consisting of curry and rice. It was around 8 p.m. and they hadn't eaten since lunch, so they were pretty hungry. They quickly ate before getting up and moving on after doing the dishes. They briefly examined the guest rooms, which were surprisingly of higher class than they thought they would be, and moved on to the armory. The armory was well stocked with not only kunai and shuriken, but also all sorts of interesting weapons like swords, saban, kusarigamas, the weapon Hanzo uses, spears, and naginatas. What was even more impressive was the sheer amount of paper bombs that the place held. There were all sorts of creative varieties other than the original explosive kind too. Naruto and Hinata both mentally noted that they would try and learn a weapon style to complement their own abilities. Finally, it was time for them to check out the clan vault, so they walked down the staircase that led to the basement of the compound. They walked down the path that was lit by what seemed to be ever-burning torches. A/N. I love seals because I can do pretty much anything I want with them. I'll be sure to include some of the more creative seals in later chapters. You'll also see a lot of the creative ones in the Omax, until they reached a dead end. The wall, however, wasn't like the normal stone wall that the rest of the basement was. It was jet black and made of pure obsidian. Naruto was thoughtful for a moment, and said, "I figure that this is the vault. I also assume that it is equipped with a phasing seal just like the main gate, but I can only assume that the supplementary protective seals are a lot worse if you set them off than what the main gate would do to you. However, we shouldn't have that problem." With that said, he grabbed Hinata's hand and injected his chakra into the wall, marking Hinata as a person that could enter the vault. Still holding hands, they stepped through the wall. A/N. This is the perfect point for a cliffhanger, but I am not going to torture you guys this time. Inside was a large, well-lit room that was covered in a sea of Ryo. There was literally enough money in the room to last Hinata and Naruto through their immortal lives. But that was not what caught Naruto and Hinata's attention. What they were drawn to was a weapon rack in the corner of the room. On it were some very unique weapons. First was a katana that glowed softly blue in the light that had a swirl for its tsuba, and a small red whirlpool on the bottom of the hilt. Next was a kusarigama that had a soft lavender handle and a pitch-black blade that seemed to absorb all of the light that was around it. Then there was 2 butterfly daggers with wavy blades of what appeared to be pure crystal that light reflected off of, causing rainbows to appear on nearby surfaces. A/N. For those of you who have played Soul Calibur 2, the shape of the butterfly daggers is the shape of Taki's ultimate weapon, Chris Naga. Finally, there were a pair of knuckle blades, A/N, Asuma's weapons, that were bright orange, that seems to be glowing orange with power. Naruto couldn't help but be drawn towards the sword and the knuckle blades, while Hinata was drawn towards the kusarigama and the butterfly daggers. They picked up said weapons, and they felt extremely comfortable in their hands. They exchanged weapons, but each other's weapons just didn't feel as natural in their hands. A/N. If anyone else tried to pick up these particular weapons, then they will receive a nasty surprise. I will explain that later though. They gave each other's weapons back and they resolved that they would each become masters of their weapons. Naruto strapped the sword onto his back and put the knuckle blades into his pouch while Hinata strapped the kusarigama to her back and the butterfly daggers to her hips. A/N. Again, think Taki. Before they refilled their wallets with some of the money that was lying around and they headed out back through the door and back to the master bedroom. They kissed each other goodnight before getting ready to go to bed and hopping into their bed, falling asleep to the sound of each other's breathing. And that's a wrap. I hope you guys like the weapons I thought up of, but I need your guys' help. These weapons need names and powers. Nothing too overpowered though. So if you guys think of anything good, leave a review, and if I like it, I might use it, and I will be sure to give you credit if you want. You guys will have several chapters time to leave me a response, since they won't be discovering their weapons abilities for a little while. Also, I have another question for you guys. Should I let Sasuke get branded with the cursed seal or not? I have not decided yet, and I thought I would let you decide whether he gets the seal or not. Either way, he will still be the egotistical bastard that he is, as you will see next chapter during the team assignments. Finally, I'm still contemplating on whether I should have Naruto and Hinata be backup for Team 7's wave mission. So your input on that is appreciated. But we are not done just yet, we still have an Omake to do. I hope you guys enjoy it. Omake, the Wheel of Torture Part 1. If you said that the Root members were angry about Danzo's death, then you would be wrong. They were trained by that very man to feel no emotions, and as such, they felt none when Danzo died. However, they did feel the need to get revenge on the person who they believed to be the cause of their master's death. They wanted revenge on Naruto, so they gathered a few members and went to the Namake's compound at night. They were currently trying to figure out how to get past the iron door. They had seen Naruto drag Hinata straight through the door the previous night, and they were wondering how he did that. That was when one of the younger Root members had the bright idea of injecting his chakra into the door. Bad idea. He injected his chakra, and suddenly the seals on the door lit up, and the kanji for various things started to cycle on the door. Finally it stopped. The kanji on the door read Legend of Zelda Chickens. The Root members were completely confused as to why the door said this. That was then they heard it. The horrifying sound of an ungodly amount of angry chickens flying straight at them. Many Root members lost their lives that night. The rest of them regained one of their emotions that they had previously lost. Fear. Fear of what? Fear of chickens. Hinata woke up the next morning to find that once again, her tails had entwined with Naruto's. So she kissed him to wake him up, and they untangled their tails and got out of bed to get ready for the day. After they were all washed up, they headed down to the kitchen to get some breakfast. Hinata cooked some more cinnamon buns to go with the cereal that they each ate. After breakfast, they cleaned up their dishes and went back to the bedroom where they had left their new weapons. They strapped on their weapons and left the main building. While they were walking to the main gate, Hinata piped up and said, "Hey Ruto-kun, how about we use some of the passageways in the cave to get to the academy? I'm sure that there will be one that leads there." "That's a great idea, Hina-chan. It will be interesting to see where it pops out." With that said, they headed to the cave where they followed the passage until they reached the cavern. Once there, they stopped and examined the map that was carved on the wall. Once they memorized the way they would need to take to get to the academy, they left and started following the winding passageways. In what felt like no time at all, they reached a wall that appeared to be made of the same material that the academy building was. They also noticed that the wall had a phasing seal on it. They also noticed that the seal had the kanji of Naruto and Hinata's names on it. "I guess marking you as a member of the Namake's clan on the front door also marked you on the phasing seals that these passageways lead to." "That's convenient," said Naruto. Hinata nodded and then activated her Byakugan to check if the coast was clear for them to walk through without them being seen. It was, and they walked through to find themselves in the middle of a hallway in the academy. They walked towards their classroom, ignoring any confused looks that people gave them considering that they didn't bother to henge when they left. It was currently 8:30, and they would be receiving their assignments at 9 o'clock. When they got to their room, they both took a deep breath and opened the door. Surprisingly, all of the other graduating students had gotten to the classroom before them. They all turned their heads to the sound of the door opening, and were completely shocked when they saw who entered. Their eyes followed Naruto and Hinata as the couple made their way to the back of the room, where Naruto sat down in an empty seat, and Hinata sat down on top of him, straddling him legs. She then took him in a deep kiss, completely ignoring the stares that had followed them when they entered the room. Kiba was the first to recover from shock, and he got up and walked up to Naruto and Hinata. Surprisingly, what he said had nothing to do with their unsoul appearances. He said, "Hey loser, what do you think you are doing here? This meeting is for those who passed. Also you're kissing my girl." Not even breaking their deep kiss, Hinata snaked one of her tails around Kiba's neck before picking him up and slamming him 4 inches deep into the concrete wall. Finally breaking their kiss, Hinata turned her head to Kiba, giggled and said, "Silly Kiba, we know that this is a meeting for those who passed, which is exactly why we are here. Or did you not notice the leaf headbands around our arms? Also, I am not your girl. I am Ruto-kun's girl and he is my boy." With that said, Hinata engaged in another makeout session with Naruto. Seeing this, Sasuke got up and walked over to them. He then said to Hinata, "You're strong. I have decided that you will be the one to have the honor of bearing the next generation of Uchiha." All of Sasuke's fangirls squealed in protest as he said this. This time it was Naruto's tail that found itself wrapped around someone's neck. He picked up Sasuke, strangled him a little, and then slammed him 8 inches into the wall next to Kiba. This time Hinata broke their kiss and stood up in front of Sasuke and Kiba. She then said, "You two are absolute idiots. Especially you, Sasuke. Did you not hear me when I said that I was Naruto's and only Naruto's girl? Or did you think that didn't apply to you since you are a great Uchiha? Let me get one thing straight. You will never try, or even think about taking me away from my Ruto-kun. Since this is only a warning, I will let you off without using the full power of my technique. With that said, she dropped into a juken stance and yelled 8 trigrams, castration palm, A/N. A very special thanks to Lord Farsight for allowing me to use what could easily be considered Hinata's ultimate juken technique here. I have told you all before, and I will now tell you again, go check out his crack collection, it's hilarious, before slamming her palm into each boy's crotch. Every boy in the room winced as she did this. Sasuke and Kiba were so far stuck into the wall that they couldn't even bend over in pain. So they did the next best thing. They fainted into blissful unconsciousness. Hinata then turned to Naruto, pouted and said, "Did you have to slam Sasuke so far into the wall? Now everybody will think that you are stronger than me." Naruto quickly apologized by saying, "I'm so sorry, Hina-chan. I was just so angry that he inferred that he would have sex with you that I lost some control. I know that you are stronger," he faltered under Hinata's deepened pout. "Are as strong as me." Hinata brightened up and said, "Apology accepted, Rudo-kun. As for Sasuke having sex with me, that would never happen, and I doubt that he would even be able to get me to moan with that tiny dick of his. You, however, I'm sure will be getting me to scream your name in no time with what you have under your pants, as soon as I decide it's a good time to ravish you." Naruto turned bright red upon hearing this. Hinata then straddled Naruto again and locked him in another deep kiss. The class was completely silent after this. 10 minutes later, Iruka walked in shouting, "All right, everybody, sit down and shut up." He then realized that the entire class was already in their seats, and already quiet. He then noticed the still forms of Kiba and Sasuke stuck in the walls, and the forms of Naruto and Hinata kissing in the back of the room. It was then that a certain pink-haired banshee decided to speak up and screeched, "Iruka-sensei, Naruto Baka and Hinata assaulted Sasuke-kun." Naruto and Hinata both flinched at the volume of the banshee's voice, and Iruka sighed and said, "Let me guess." First Kiba walked over to Naruto and Hinata, then he probably yelled something about them not supposed to be here. I also guessed that Naruto and Hinata were doing what they are currently doing, and Kiba saw fit to say something along the lines that Hinata was his. I also assumed that upon hearing that, Hinata proceeded to slam him into the wall. Next I assumed Sasuke saw Hinata's display of strength, and tried to claim her as his own. That probably ticked Naruto off and resulted in Sasuke being slammed into the wall. Am I right? Naruto broke his kiss, chuckled and said, "Exactly right, Iruka-sensei." Only afterwards, Hinata gave them a few choice before using a low-powered 8 trigrams, castration palm on them, knocking them out. The banshee shrieked again, "See, Iruka-sensei, they assaulted Sasuke-kun. You should punish them." Naruto and Hinata flinched again, and Naruto said, "Hasn't your mom told you by now not to get on our bad sides?" Sakura nodded and Naruto continued, "Then why are you still trying to go against us? We were provoked and rightfully defended our honor. Also, would you like to know why your mom is currently in a huge amount of pain?" Sakura again nodded and Naruto said, "Your mother was one of the idiotic members of the civilian council who tried to have us killed when we showed our true selves before them, even after I revealed my heritage. Therefore, we set them in their place. You may or may not know this, but when I was born, the QB was sealed within me. Therefore," Naruto was cut off by Sakura screeching, "Then you're a demon." Naruto just grinned and continued, "I'll take that as a compliment. Hina-chan and I are half demons, or Hanyu. But for you to infer that we are the actual things is quite flattering. Anyways, I merged with the QB when I was 5, and also marked Hina-chan as my mate at that time, transforming her. So what I did to the council was I summoned the QB. He told me that he unleashed a slow-burning flame that slowly engulfed the council members' bodies. I'm told that that will probably be the most painful thing that they will ever experience in their pathetic lives. So now the entire council is on our side. I am also sure that each of the shinobi clan heads told their kids to not get on our bad sides, and as to why Kiba ignored that, I have no idea. But Hina-chan put him in his place, and Sasuke got what he deserved for trying to take her away from me." At this the entire room was silenced. Then, interestingly enough, it was Shikamaru who spoke up and said, "You mentioned your heritage? What do you mean by that?" Naruto again grinned and said, "I know you, Shikamaru. You're the laziest person who has ever existed, but also probably the smartest. So you tell me, Shikamaru, who am I related to? If you guess right, I'll give you permission to enter our estate as a guest. No one has ever had that privilege before. I would actually like for you to come in, since Hina-chan and I have found quite a few scrolls that would really help with not only your family's shadow jutsus, but also the Nara clan medicine as well. So who am I related to?" Shikamaru studied Naruto for a moment, locked his eyes on his blonde hair and blue eyes, then widened his own eyes to the size of plates, before muttering, "You're his son, aren't you? That has to be the most troublesome thing to have ever existed." Naruto laughed and said, "It seems you figured it out. Congratulations, Shikamaru. As promised, you will be the first one to ever be a guest in our estate. We will figure out a time later." The rest of the class was completely confused as to what had just happened, so Iruka decided to clear it up. "I think I will start the team assignments now, as that will clear the confusion. I will start with the special team of Team 15. The members will be Naruto and Hinata Namikaze, under the Jonin sensei of Anko Midarashi." The rest of the class's eyes widened in surprise at this revelation, while Naruto and Hinata were sort of surprised that they had gotten a sensei when they had requested not to, but they hid the surprise from their faces. Irika continued saying on to the normal teams. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Kiba Inuzuka, and Sakura Haruno under Kakashi Hatake. Team 8 will be Shino Aburame, the transfer student Fu of Takigakure, and the transfer student Yujutoni of Kumogakure under the Jonin sensei Kurinai Yuhi. A/N, Shino is one lucky guy, right? Don't worry, he will only be in a relationship with Fu, and both Fu and Yujuto are 13. Naruto, upon hearing this, whispered to Hinata, we need to talk with that team sometime later. Those two are like what I was before I merged. Finally, we have Team 10 that will be composed of Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akimichi, and Ino Yamanaka, under Asuma Sarutobi. Just then a pair of kunai flew through the window, which wasn't open by the way, and stuck into the wall, in the process hanging a banner that said Anko Mitarashi is here. There was a poof of smoke in the middle of the room, and as it cleared it showed the form of Anko, who turned to the class and yelled, now where is my little brother and his cute girlfriend? And that's a wrap. The cliffhanger no jutsu is back. I, as many people do, love Anko, and I decided to bring her into the story as Team 15's Fo Sensei. I also introduced two of the other Jinchuriki in the chapter, along with bashing Kiba and Sasuke. Kiba will get the lesson, but Sasuke is not going to give up, so he will have more pain in store for him later. Overall, this was a successful chapter, but we are not done. We still have the Omake to go, and I would like to thank everyone for their submissions, and ask that you keep it up. I put a chapter up every day, so there are plenty of chances for you to have your devilish ideas made into the Omake. But enough of that, on with the Omake. Wheel of Torture Chapter 2. The Root members were now annoyed at the door that stood in front of them. The last night, it had somehow summoned chickens that killed a great many of them. But today was a new day, and a different member of the force decided to try his luck with the door. He injected his chakra into the door, and to his horror, the wheel began to spin again. This time it settled on Wrath of the Mad God. There was a brilliant flash of purple, and there standing before them was the Daedric Prince of Madness, Shigarath himself. Shigarath took a moment to get him bearing before he said, well, it would seem that my old champion Minato's door has chosen to summon me at this inopportune time. I was in the middle of rolling cheese wheels across the palace floor. Anyways, I take it that you are the perpetrators that have caused this infernal door to summon me? The Root members were speechless after the cheese wheel comment. Taking their silence as a yes, the Mad God continued, very well, what should I do with you? Should I rip out your entrails and make you skip rope with them? No, that is too bloody. How about I turn your heads into cabbages? Or maybe I will make it rain flaming dogs on you like I did that settlement near Leywin? No, how about I turn you into cheese wheels and roll you across the palace grounds? No? Really, you are a tough crowd. I know. I will ask Haskell what he thinks I should do to you. He snapped his fingers and there stood Haskell. He then asked, so what would you recommend that I do to these humans? Haskell dully responded, you have not transformed anyone into cinnamon buns in a while, sir. It would be a dreadful shame if something were to happen to your title as a cinnamon bun lover. A marvelous idea, my dear Haskell. I have not transformed anyone into that recently, and I've decided that I will give the mortal world a little present. I will leave the cinnamon buns here for anyone to find and eat. You are definitely most generous, my lord. Truly this plain is not worthy of your kindness. Ah, but it is. If it were not for Minato, I would not be here today, or any other day that is. But come now, Haskell, we really must be going. Those cheese wheels won't roll themselves. With that said, he snapped his fingers and vanished in a flash of purple. All that was left of the Root squad was a steaming platter of fresh cinnamon buns. Naruto and Hinata were completely ignoring Anko's flashy entrance by kissing in the back of the room. Seeing this immediately annoyed Anko, so she took a kunai out of her pouch and threw it straight at them. Naruto deftly caught the kunai with one of his tails and threw it back in front of her. This annoyed Anko even more, but she kept her cool since they were at least paying enough attention to actually stop her attack. So she shouted, okay, that's enough of that, you two. You can do that later, so meet me on top of the roof in 5 minutes. With that, she shunshined off in a swirl of leaves. Finally breaking their kiss, Naruto said to Hinata, well, I guess we should see what this about. We can continue at home later. They then shunshined to the roof, not in a swirl of leaves, but in a swirl of blue flames. The rest of the class was shocked that both of them knew the shunshin. Not only that, but they had used flames instead of leaves. Roof of the academy, Naruto and Hinata arrived in a swirl of blue flames to find Anko waiting for them, eating a stick of dango. She nodded at them approvingly, and said, you both know the shunshin? I'm impressed. But now to business. I'm sure you have some questions for me? Naruto nodded and said, why are you our sensei? We already have one and we both requested that we be given no one else. Anko grinned and said, well, little brother, it's quite simple. I am your official sensei, as one is needed for you two to officially be a squad. Did you think that the Hokage was going to come clean and say that the Kyuubi was your sensei? That would never fly with the higher-ups, even though you have the council in your pocket. Also, you need a physical person to be there as your sensei if you wish to take the Chunin exams. Besides, the Hokage had to pull quite a few strings to get you into the first ever two-man squad. By the way, what did you do to get those idiots in the council on your side? I've only heard that you did something violent to get those idiots to see sense. Now it was Naruto's turn to grin as he said, sorry big sis, but that's classified. Although I'm sure you heard the short version of what we did when we told the Banshee. That was the short version. Wow. I said it before and I'll say it again, but you should really think about joining the T&I department. We could use someone of your caliber, said Anko. Anyways, on to business. Normally I would have you take a test to see if you are truly worthy of being a genin team, but as you two are a special case, I see no need to conduct said test. From what I get the impression of, you two are already high chunin to low jonin level already, Naruto said to Hinata through their mind link, more like high jonin to Kage level. But Anko doesn't need to know that before saying to Anko, so since you are our official sensei, will you need to be there for our missions? Anko was thoughtful for a moment before she said, I don't think that I will need to be there. You kids can handle yourselves. The only reason I'm here is to keep the other genin squads from asking questions. So now that that's done, I'm going to take my leave and get some more dango. You two can have fun doing whatever you want. If you ever want any training in poisons though, don't hesitate to ask. With that she shined away to get some more of her precious dango. Naruto turned to Hinata and said, so what do you want to do, Hina-chan? Should we head back to the estate to continue what we were doing in the classroom? Or should we drop by the old man and get some missions? I know that we don't need any money, but you have to have completed a number of missions before being able to take the chunin exams. So what do you say? How about we do both? We can drop by the Hokages to get a few missions, then create some clones to do the missions while we head back to the estate so we can continue. Great idea, Hina-chan. With that they shined away in a swirl of flames. Hokage Tower. The Hokage was happily smoking his pipe as he relaxed in his chair. Sure, what Naruto and Hinata had done to the council had resulted in an astounding amount of paperwork, but it was worth it in his eyes. For one, he got to watch the council get put in their rightful place, which is something he should have done a long time ago. Second, and by far more important, Naruto had told him the secret to defeating the Hokage's bane. If he had not learned this, and he got the amount of paperwork from that incident that he did, he would be drowning in paperwork for at least a year. But that was not the case. Thank the log for shadow clones. How he had not thought of using them before was beyond him, but now that he knew, he had so much time on his hands to do what he wanted. He was half tempted to take a S-rank mission for the fun of it, but the council would never allow it. So there he was sitting in his chair, almost bored, but he could never truly do nothing for long enough to become bored because there was always someone who would appear through the window to ask something of him. It was while Hiruzen was contemplating these things that Naruto and Hinata appeared in a swirl of blue flames. Hiruzen looked up at them and said, I see that you too have learned the Shunshin. Very impressive for a fresh genin. Naruto laughed and said, I see that you are enjoying not drowning in paperwork, old man. Hiruzen let out a hearty chuckle and said, yes, thanks to you. I am in your department. Now what is it that you two want? I assume that you didn't stop by just to chat. Give us 20 D-ranked missions, old man, said Naruto, and you will not need to pay us when we complete them. Just make sure that they go on our record when our clones turn them in. We have no need for any extra money. We checked out the clan vault and I don't think that we will ever need to worry about our monetary status ever, even considering the fact that we will never die unless killed. Hiruzen chuckled and said, I see that you two are aiming to become chunin as quick as possible. Will your clones be under a henge or will they be your true selves? Hinata giggled and said, they will be our true selves. Rodokun and I want to get the village used to the fact that we are Hanyu and that we are of no harm to them. So we are starting with common D-ranked missions to get ourselves known throughout the village. We won't care what the villagers say as long as they let us do our jobs, and hopefully after they see us do our jobs, they will begin to appreciate us. But that will be for the clones to do. Rodokun and I are heading back to the estate to finish what we had started in the academy classroom before we were rudely interrupted, multiple times. Hiruzen's sweat dropped upon hearing this, and he got 20 mission scrolls. He handed them to Naruto and Hinata, who walked out the door. They looked over each of them and Naruto was reading over the scroll that had the Capture Tora mission on it when Kurama spoke up in his mind. Kit, I have an idea for that mission. Summon your mom. When she tortured the council, she used that cat as one of the ways that she tortured them. Naruto said hi, Kurama-sensei, and went through the hand seals for the summoning jutsu. He slammed his palm on the ground and in a puff of smoke, there was his mother. So you want me to summon Tora? Asked Kushina. Very well, but I should be the one that gives her to the Hokage, as I am one of the few people that can hold her without getting their face clawed off. With that said, she ran through the hand seals and slammed her palm on the ground saying Kuchios, Oni Niko. Tora appeared in Kushina's arms in a puff of smoke, and to everyone's surprise, she proceeded to jump out of Kushina's arms and into Hinata's. Kushina then said, I'm impressed, Hinata. The fact that Tora accepts you is all the proof that I need to allow you to sign my special summoning contract. She then clapped her hands and a large scroll appeared in her hands. This contract will allow you to summon demon cats, and since it is also a demon summoning scroll, it will not interfere with the Kitsune scroll that you have already signed. Just think about cats more than foxes when you summon, and you'll get a demon cat when you summon. Kushina handed the scroll to Hinata, who had dropped the mission scrolls that she had been carrying when Tora leapt into her arms. She exchanged Tora for the scroll and then unraveled the scroll. She signed her name and blood before attempting to hand the scroll back to Kushina. Kushina shook her head and said, keep it. Since I'm technically dead, you are now the owner of this summoning scroll. Just clap your hands and the scroll will vanish. If you ever need it again, clap your hands again when you need it, and it will appear. Hinata clapped her hands and the scroll vanished. Kushina handed Tora back to Hinata before poofing away in a cloud of smoke. Hinata then walked back into Hiruzen's office and gave him Tora. He was shocked that it was Hinata holding the demon cat, and not Kushina. Hinata explained what happened before leaving and meeting back up with Naruto outside. They created 20 Kagebushin each, and gave each of the pairs a mission scroll. The clones shined away to do their jobs, leaving the originals alone. Hinata spoke up and said, I think that is enough distractions for today, let's head back home. They then left, and decided to walk leisurely back to the estate. Outside the Namake's compound, 15 minutes later, Naruto and Hinata had just arrived outside their home to find a platter of delicious-looking cinnamon buns on the ground. They were still piping hot. Hinata, of course, was ecstatic at the find. She took one of the buns and took a large bite out of it. /N. This is not cannibalism. Shiogarath completely turned the root members into cinnamon buns. There is no trace of humanity in said buns. These are delicious, she remarked. You have to try some of these, Ruto-kun. Just then there was a large flash of purple, and standing there in all of his mad godliness was Shiogarath himself. He looked to Hinata and said finally, a fellow cinnamon bun connoisseur who likes my tastes and flavors. That means that I won't have to make you skip rope with your entrails. Instead, I'll give you a gift. He snapped his fingers and Hinata got a glazed look on her face. Naruto was completely startled by the sudden appearance of this man, and was only snapped out of his shock by the blank face that Hinata had. He said to the strange man, who the hell are you? And what did you do to my Hina-chan? Shiogarath laughed and said, who am I? Well, you, my dear friend, can call me Shiogarath. Or you can call me Anne-Marie, but if you do, you will enjoy watching me skip rope with your entrails. As for what I did to your mate, well, I gave her a gift. She should be coming back around completely normal if she accepted my gift, and if not, well, let's just say her mind will be more twisted than a twister. At that moment, Hinata snapped out of her trance and looked at Shiogarath and asked, excuse me, Shiogarath-sama, but can I really do that now? Oh, you Japanese people and your silly honorifics. I'll be taking none of that, thank you very much. As for you being able to do that, why don't you practice on this cabbage? Said Shiogarath before he snapped his fingers, conjuring a cabbage. Hinata then snapped her fingers, and the cabbage turned into a steaming hot cinnamon bun. Hinata squealed with delight before running over to the bun and taking a huge bite out of the bun. A bit cabbagey tasting, but still very good, Hinata remarked to herself. Shiogarath laughed in amusement before saying, excellent, you can now turn objects into cinnamon buns. Since you are still a wee bit inexperienced, the bun will take on a little bit of the flavor of the object it had been. But that will go away with practice. Now I have to get back to my palace before the Orioles and Mazkins start to kill each other. But first I have to say, that you, he pointed at Naruto, are the splitting image of your father, minus the fox features of course. But I have to say, those features have given me a wonderfully horrible idea of a new chamber that I could add to Zidillion. That place has been busy nonstop ever since your father reactivated it, and the other chambers are starting to get a bit boring. Naruto immediately perked up upon hearing about his father and asked, you knew my father? How? Of course I knew your father. He was only the champion of my realm. In fact, I would not be here today if your father hadn't chosen to reject the title of Mad God after he defeated myself. I would have been him, and he would have been me, but he chose to split off from the power of a god and recreated me. So without him, there would be no me, so I am eternally grateful to Minato for not only stopping the Grey March, but also for giving up godhood so that I could be me once again. But I really must be going. I have so little things to do, and so much time to do them. With that said, Shiogarath disappeared in a flash of purple. Naruto just stood there dumbfounded, until Hinata snapped him out of it and dragged him inside. They then went to their bed where they proceeded to make out. The rest of the day passed slowly by as they entertained themselves by training, reading through jutsu scrolls, or just relaxing by the poolside. Life for Naruto and Hinata Namikaze was currently very good, and that's a wrap. I'm sorry for those of you who had no clue what I was talking about with Shiogarath, but all I have to say for you is that you should probably buy Oblivion and its expansion, The Shivering Isles, and play through them. They are absolutely amazing. You will also then know exactly what is going on with what I referenced. So now Hinata can turn objects into cinnamon buns, and she has signed the Demon Cat summoning contract. I gave her a lot of gifts in this chapter, but rest assured, she will make good use of them. Does ramen-flavored cinnamon buns give anyone any ideas? Hinata will have no problem luring Naruto to the dark side of the bun. Anyways, there still is the Omake to go, so let's get on with that. Wheel of Torture Chapter 3, Special Sasuke Edition. Sasuke was brooding. Sure, he was always brooding, but this time he was extra moody. The Dobe had completely showed him up today, and he was going to get revenge. He now knew that the Dobe lived at the Namikaze compound, but he still refused to believe that the Dobe was actually a Namikaze. So Sasuke, in his infinite wisdom, decided that if the Dobe could break into the Namikaze compound, then it would be a breeze for an Uchiha to do it. He was going to go in, steal as much as he could, and leave before the dobe knew that he was there. So that brings us to the current situation. Sasuke was standing in front of the iron door, wondering how to get in. He put his hand on the door, not even injecting any chakra, when suddenly the kanji for Uchiha alert was written on the door, and the door began spinning the wheel. The wheel stopped on special Skyrim chickens. Suddenly all around Sasuke, poofs of smoke appeared, and when they cleared, there stood a dozen chickens, who were slowly and menacingly closing in on Sasuke. The moment the first one got close to Sasuke, it started shining brightly, before exploding violently. It was only Sasuke's skills as a ninja that saved his life, but he was still badly burned. Deciding that it wasn't worth it, he turned and ran towards the safety of the Uchiha compound. Several people saw the last Uchiha running for his life from chickens. They were quite confused. However, the root members that saw him just thanked the log that the door had given that punishment to someone else, and from then forth, the last Uchiha, like all of Root, developed a fear of the feathered kind. Hinata awoke the next day a bit earlier than usual, as her brain was still in the process of sorting out the information that Shiogarath had given her. Apparently, Shiogarath had deemed it necessary to fill her head with a lot of useless, or so she thought, facts, and also gave her a few more gifts than just the cinnamon bun one, such as the fact that the max speed of a rolling 6-pound cheese wheel was 20 miles per hour under the right conditions. Hinata untangled her tails from Naruto's without his help. She was only able to do this since one of the random gifts was how to untangle any knot, and went and showered. She then got dressed and set out for a walk. She visited the garden and remembered that she told herself that she would wear a flower in her hair, so she picked out a pretty lavender one, and put it in her hair. She then headed back to the master bedroom. Hinata arrived to find Naruto getting dressed, so they headed down to the kitchen together. Hinata had a devious idea of what to make using her new powers, so she told Naruto to wait outside while she made breakfast. Inside the kitchen, she set to work. She put on a huge pot of water on the boiler, and prepared some ingredients. She then proceeded to make her special homemade ramen. When it was all cooked, she separated the ramen into 12 bowls. She snapped her fingers and instantly all of the ramen in the bowls was transformed into delicious cinnamon buns. Hinata made some rice to go with the buns, before she called Naruto into the kitchen. Hinata saw that Naruto was disappointed at the apparent lack of ramen when he was sure that he had smelled it, and she said, "You really have to try the buns, Naruto-kun. They are extra special today." Listening to his mate, Naruto took a big bite out of one of the buns and his eyes widened at the ramen flavor. He quickly devoured 4 more before saying to Hinata, "I don't know how you made these and I honestly don't care. All I know is that these are probably the most delicious things in existence." Hinata giggled and said, "I knew that you would love them. I made them with the gift that Shiogarath-sama gave to me. So you should be thanking him for giving me such a perfect gift." Naruto had scarfed down another 4 buns while she said this before saying, "I'll be sure to thank him the next time we see him. He may be a little bit off, but I like him." Hinata giggled and said, "I like him too. So what would you like to do today, Naruto-kun?" Naruto was thoughtful for a moment before he said, "I would like to visit Team 8. They have 2 Jinchuriki on that team, and we need them on our side. I figure we can drop by and talk to them during their team assessment. Kurenai is like a big sister to you, right? Do you have any idea when and where she would hold her assessment?" Hinata thought for a moment before saying, "Yes, she is my unofficial Nei-san. As for the time and place, I would have to guess 9 o'clock and training ground 8. That was where and when she took me to privately train back when I was with them." She said them with a large amount of venom in her voice. "Okay, it's 8:45 now, so we should head out." They cleaned up their dishes and headed out. Training ground 8, 9 o'clock. Shino was confused. While he liked his team just fine, as he felt he might be able to open up a little bit to them, he was confused about the lime-haired girl that was chatting animatedly to their other teammate. For some reason, Shino's bug seemed to be drawn to the girl. He couldn't figure out why, other than for some reason she had a bit of odd chakra. But the weird thing was the other girl on his team also had odd chakra, but his bug seemed to not care about her. So Shino was standing there trying to figure out the enigma that was the girl named Fu, when Kurenai appeared in a swirl of leaves. "I'm glad to see that you 3 are punctual. To be late for a mission is a crime in my book," said Kurenai while thinking of a certain book reading jonin. "So today is the day where we see if you 3 are truly ready to become genin. I hope for your sakes that you do well. Today's test will be." Kurenai was suddenly cut off by Fu and Yujito suddenly whipping around and standing at the ready. "What is it, you two? Your files never said anything about you two being sensory types. And I don't sense anything off," said Kurenai. Yujito never took her eyes off a piece of air when she answered, "We aren't sensory types. But I suddenly got the feeling like I was in the presence of someone familiar." "Same," agreed Fu. Suddenly a giggle rang through the air and a cute voice said, "Ah, they figured us out, Naruto-kun. I guess you were right when you said that the illusion would be of no use against people like us." With that the illusion faded away, revealing Naruto and Hinata standing a few feet away from Team 8. Naruto grinned and then pointed at Fu and Yujito and said, "We both know what you two are, and I'm assuming that the other members of your team don't know, and that has to change. You two both know what Hina-chan and I are, since you were there in the academy when we told everybody. So Hina-chan and I have 2 questions for the both of you. 1. How much contact have you been in with your tenants? And 2, would you like to become what Hina-chan and I are? Both Fu and Yujito were dumbfounded. How did this couple know their secrets? No one other than the Hokage knew that they were Jinchuriki. So Fu spoke up and said, how do you know about that? The only person who is supposed to know that is the Hokage. Naruto laughed and said, duh, I was like you two are. So of course I recognize another one of my kin. Besides, if you two were not what you are, you would have never have been able to sense us through our illusion. Kurenai chose to interrupt at this point and said, what are you talking about, Naruto? What do you mean that they are like you were? Naruto smiled and said, well, the easiest way would be to show you all. With that said, he clapped his hands and everyone there fell into unconsciousness. Shared mindscape. Shino and Kurenai woke up to find themselves in a blank expanse of space. They looked around and were immediately fearful for their lives. Standing around them in a circle were Naruto, Hinata, Fu and Yujito. But that was not what scared them. What scared them was that behind Naruto and Hinata was a nine-tailed fox. They then looked at Fu and Yujito and were completely surprised. Behind Fu was a giant beetle with 6 wing-like tails and a 7th normal tail. Behind Yujito was a large cat with 2 tails that seemed to be entirely composed of blue flames. They were equally surprised when the fox behind Naruto and Hinata started to speak. Chome, Matatabi, it is good to see you again. Now I would like you to kindly answer the question that my kit asked your containers, said Kurama. Matatabi spoke up first and said, I have taken care of my kitten ever since she was left an orphan when her mother died. She has decent control of my powers and I am her mother figure. I speak with her every day. Kurama nodded and said, so you chose the direct approach. Very well, what about you, Chome? I, the lucky number 7 Chome, have chosen to only help Fu when she was in danger of dying. She knows that I'm inside her, but I don't interact much with her. If I may ask, Kurama, what approach did you take with your container? I can see that you two have merged, but I am indeed curious as to what would make you choose to do that. I would have thought that you would have been too proud to ever accept a merge. Kurama laughed and said, I took the same approach that you did. I appeared when he was in danger to save him, but he did something so ridiculous that I offered him the chance to merge. Then he did something even more ridiculous than the first. Oh, so what did he do? Asked Matatabi. Kurama again laughed and said, the brat stood up to me. And then after he accepted the deal to merge to save his vixen's life, he actually asked what my name was. No one had ever asked my name before. That's what made me really respect the kit. Naruto then interrupted the beasts and said, while I understand that you haven't seen each other in a long time, can we get to the reason that we are here? I want you two, he pointed at Fu and Yujito, to merge with your bijou. Chome then spoke up and said, and why should we listen to you? Kurama spoke up and said, if you think that the container gets all the perks when you merge, then you would be dead wrong. First, you wouldn't be stuck behind a seal all the time. You would have free range in your container's mindscape. Second, your container would be able to summon you to the real world. I have to say that it feels excellent stretching your legs after being stuck in a seal for so long. And third, you get a Hanyu form that you can take whenever you want, so you don't have to be stuck in such a large body all the time. Chome thought this over for a moment before saying, that sounds acceptable. I will merge. Come here, Fu, and rip my seal off. I promise that I will not take over. Fu looked at Naruto and asked, what will I get if I merge with Chome? Naruto was thoughtful for a moment before he said, well, I'm really not sure what will happen to you appearance-wise, but I can guarantee that you will be far stronger than before. Also, if I am correct, you will be able to share your power with one other person. For Kitsune Hanyas that happens through the mate mark, but I have no clue how it will work for you with Chome being an insect. The only cons are that you will be quite noticeable as someone who isn't normal. Fu then walked over to Chome and said, I'll do it. Her seal appeared in front of her, and she ripped it down. There was a bright flash of lime green chakra, and when it died down it revealed the new and improved Fu. She was 18 now, and the only change that was obviously from Chome were the 6 yellow and red wings that grew out of her tailbone. She had grown slightly taller, and her were straining uncomfortably against her tight shirt. How they didn't rip through the shirt, no one knew. She previously had B cups, but they had grown into D cups from the change. She quickly used the demon henge to change her back until she could get new clothes. A/N. The demon henge actually changes your body unlike the normal henge, which is just an illusion. Shino had turned bright red upon seeing the new Fu. While he now understood why his insects were so interested in her, now he felt like he should follow whatever she said to do. That and his physical reaction to Fu's new body left the normally emotionless man struggling to gain control over his emotions. Fu laughed at Shino as she understood exactly what was happening to him. She had just become a queen of insects, and since Shino had merged his body with insects, he was struggling to control the urges to obey the queen. She came up with a brilliant idea and said to Shino, I am now a queen of insects, so I understand that you will want to follow me and do whatever I say. However, this would mess up our team dynamics, so I'll cut you a deal. I'll make you my king, so that you won't be affected by my aura. Also, I like you, and I think you are cute, and I can tell by the physical reaction that you're having to me that you obviously like me, so it's a win-win for both of us. Shino just nodded, and Fu walked over to him and scattered dust from her tails all over Shino. The dust then settled into the shape of the beetle before burning its way through Shino's coat and giving him a tattoo that encompassed his entire back. Shino instantly felt calmer, and he felt that he could control his emotions in Fu's presence once more. He also felt taller, and he looked down to see that he was now 18 as well. Fu just smiled at his transformation, but inwardly she thought, damn, he's really hot now. Yujito, upon watching this unfold, decided that she would have to merge or she would be left in the dust in their team, as she could feel the power radiating off Fu and Shino. She turned to Matatabi and said, I'm ready to merge with you. Matatabi looked at her and said, very well, but first I sense that the vixen here has my scroll. I left that scroll with Kushina, but she died an untimely death, so I thought that I would never see it again. Young Hinata, would you kindly bring it out so that my kin could sign it before we merge? Hinata nodded and then clapped her hands, summoning the scroll. Yujito signed the scroll in her blood before giving it back to Hinata. She then turned to Matatabi and willed the seal to appear. It did so and she ripped it off, causing an explosion of dark blue chakra. When it subsided, an 18-year-old Yujito stood there. She now had 2 blue tails that seemed to constantly be on fire. She also had a pair of flaming cat ears and Matatabi's different color eyes, one yellow, one green. Her bust size had also increased from B's to D's, and like Fu, she was forced to use a demon henge until she could buy more clothes. Naruto was satisfied with what happened and brought them out of the mindscape. Training ground 8. They all woke to find that they were still standing. Kurenai looked at her watch and was shocked to see that not a moment had passed. She asked, how is this possible? Hinata giggled and said, inside a mindscape, the controller can adjust time to how they see fit. It's quite useful if you need to memorize something and don't have a lot of time to do it. Kurenai then continued by saying, so let me get this straight. Yujito and Fu were Jinchuriki, and I was never told. And now they have merged with their bijou, making them Hanyu. Not only that, but Fu made Shino her king. Naruto laughed and said, that's right, Kurenai-san. You had better keep training because before long, they are all going to surpass you because I suspect that Chome will be teaching Fu and Shino and Matatabi will be teaching Yujito. So you better get to work. I would also like to propose that our teams meet every once in a while to do joint training. Hina-chan and I would like to get to know our fellow Hanyu better, and what better way is there to do that than to spar? Also, I don't think that you will need to administer the test anymore, since all Hanyu are naturally linked to each other since there are so few of us, and the main idea of the test was to test teamwork, right? Kurenai nodded and said, very well, you are all dismissed. I take it that you all need to buy new clothes, so go do that. Shino, I think that you should ask your father if Fu can stay with your clan. Once you explain what happened, I'm sure that he will be happy to oblige, if Fu's aura doesn't get to him first. Shino nodded and the pair walked towards the nearest clothing shop. Kurenai then headed home, leaving Naruto, Hinata and Yujito. Hinata then asked Yujito, so where are you living at? I'm living in an old rundown apartment that the Hokage gave me. He tried to give me better, but the council wouldn't allow it. Hinata was saddened to hear that, and said, why don't you come live with Naruto and me in our compound as a guest? We have plenty of space, and it gets a bit lonely with it just being us in there. Since you are a fellow Hanyu, you are practically our sister already. Yujito was shocked at Hinata's offer, and said, I'm honored that you would even consider letting me into your estate, especially since I am from another village. But I feel as though I would betray your trust if I took up on your offer without telling you why I was sent here. Kumo sent me as a spy to find a Hyuga that we could capture during the upcoming Chunin exams. I told them to target you, Hinata, as you always appeared to be so weak in the academy. I was definitely wrong. Hinata just giggled and said, I knew that Kumo would probably try to take me during the exams. They already tried to capture me once before when I was 3. This time they will be in for one hell of a surprise. Besides, my Rido-kun will be targeted by anybody who is from IWA once they find out his last name. They will probably target me too now that I think about it. But we will be prepared, and they won't know what hit them. So while I thank you for telling us that, the information is sort of useless. But my offer still stands. You are a sister to us, and we have seen that you are a good person. After all, you were only following your orders. Yujito was practically moved to tears by what Hinata said, and she said, I would be honored to take up on your offer, my sister. But before we head home, can we go shopping first? I need to get new clothes. With that, the 3 left to go shopping. Wheel of Torture Chapter 4. The Root members were back at it once again. They had decided that they were going to send every member they had to try their chakra one at a time in hopes that one of them might have been from the Namikaze blood. So today's unlucky victim walked up to the door and injected his chakra. The wheel began spinning and the watching Root members began praying to the log that the member who had injected his chakra have a good life in the afterlife. Or they prayed that he may be reincarnated into something more peaceful, like a potted plant. The Root member watched the wheel in horror as it came to a stop. His fate was decided. The wheel said reincarnation, potted plant, and with a flash of light, the Root member was now a potted plant, and so the log answered their prayers. One of the Root bystanders went to the potted plant and picked it up, thinking that the newly made plant would be fitting in his house. He never got that far. He was walking down the hill from the Namikaze compound when he tripped and broke his neck. Being reincarnated as a plant did not stop his fate. His pot shattered and he died, his soil scattered across the ground. After Hinata took Yujito and a grumbling Naruto shopping, they hinged into civilians so that they wouldn't get any trouble. They headed back to the Namikaze compound. Naruto decided that he was willing to let Yujito full access to the compound, as she was his new sister. So he marked her chakra in the door before they walked through. Naruto and Hinata gave Yujito a tour of the compound, before telling her the ground rules. First was that she would never enter Naruto's study, or the cave in the side of the mountain. Second was that she should put anything she used back in its place when she was done with it. Third was that she was not allowed to bring any guests into the compound, without the explicit approval of Naruto or Hinata. Finally, Hinata added that she was to always knock on the master bedroom's door to check to see if it was okay to enter. With that done, they led her to her room and left her to her own devices. Naruto and Hinata then made lunch. During lunch, Naruto spoke up and said, "So Hina-chan, what do you want to do for the rest of the day?" Hinata responded by saying we should first drop by the Hokage's office and get our missions before trying to find out the news of how the other teams did in their tests. They finished off the rest of their lunch before doing the dishes and heading out to the Hokage tower. Once there, they got their 20 missions from the Hokage and set off their clones to do their jobs. While they were walking out of the tower, Hinata asked Naruto where they should look for news of the other teams. "Honestly, I have no clue where we should look," replied Naruto. "Then I guess we will just have to wander," said Hinata, "although I think we should start at some eateries, as I would assume that the test wouldn't take that long, and if the team passed, then their senseis might want to take them out in celebration." With that said, they began walking to the closest eatery, which happened to be the Akimichi family eatery. They walked inside to a few glares of the civilians eating there, but they ignored them and looked around. As luck would have it, they found Team 10 sitting around a barbecue pit. Asuma noticed them and said, "Ah, Naruto, Hinata, come sit and have a bite to eat with us. There is plenty to go around. We were just celebrating my team's becoming official ninja of the leaf." Naruto and Hinata sat down next to Asuma by the pit, and Hinata said to the team, "So you all passed? Great. What did Asuma-san test you on?" Ino spoke up and said, "Why should we tell you? After all, you are just freaks who are trying to be cooler than Sasuke-kun." Asuma quickly berated her, saying, "You really should not behave that way, Ino. If you judge everyone superficially, then you will get nowhere in life. Especially in the world of the ninja. Believe it or not, if Naruto and Hinata teamed up on me, I'm sure that they would give me a run for my money." Ino was shocked, but said, "That's impossible, sensei. You're a jonin, and they are both genin. What could they possibly do to you?" Asuma looked towards Naruto and said, "Is it okay if I tell them?" Naruto nodded and Asuma continued, "I'll let you in on a little secret. I happened upon Naruto and Hinata training with their real sensei one day as I was taking a walk. The things I saw them do were insane. There would be no way that I could replicate their training methods and live. If I didn't know better, I would say that their sensei was trying to kill them with what he was having them do." Asuma's words sunk into his team, silencing them, when Hinata giggled and said that's because he was trying to kill us with his training. His excuse was that it builds character. A/N, Calvin and Hobbes, anyone? And he succeeded, several times in fact. Let me tell you, dying is not fun, especially when the Shinigami wants to train you after you do die. His training is the absolute worst. All the pain in the world and no way to escape it. You can't die since you are already dead, and you apparently can't fall unconscious when you are dead. Our only hope was that our sensei would take pity on us and revive us. Ino found her voice again and said, "What you are saying is impossible. If you died, then you shouldn't be here alive. No one has the power to bring back the dead." Shikimura then spoke up and said, "Actually, you're wrong on both accounts, Ino. It's probably the most troublesome thing in existence, but there are actual jutsus to bring back the dead. I believe that I heard my father say that the Nidaime Hokage created a jutsu like that. However, all of those jutsu come with a heavy price to pay in exchange. The only being with the power to bring back the dead without a price is the Shinigami himself, or so I've heard." Hinata responded to him saying, "You are correct, Shikimura. The Shinigami is the only being allowed to revive the dead for free, but he can pass along that ability as a gift. He gave that gift to our sensei." Ino's eyes shot wide and she said, "So Anko-sensei can bring back people from the dead?" Shikimura responded saying, "Were you not paying attention, you troublesome woman?" Hinata said that their sensei is a he, and Anko is definitely the opposite of a he. Choji then looked up from eating his barbecue and said, "Then who is their real sensei?" Shikimura sighed and said, "The answer is another reason why at the very top of my most troublesome list are Naruto and Hinata and not my own mother. If you think about it, it's quite simple. Their real sensei who has been training them since they were both 5 is the QB itself." Ino just stammered out, but that's impossible. Why would the very demon that destroyed the village try to help the village by training Leaf Shinobi? Naruto just scoffed and said, "You really need to stop thinking so superficially, Ino. Just because he is a demon does not mean that he just hates humanity. While he is not human, he still has a soul, and he does feel emotions. While he does enjoy destruction, he would normally only choose to kill those that deserve death. Although I have to admit, a lot of the villagers do deserve death based on the way that they have treated me, and the way that they are now treating Hina-chan. They keep trying to refuse our services even though we don't want any money from them in return. But that's beside the point. The reason that he attacked our village is that he was controlled. He was not acting of his own free will, and I feel that his helping Hina-chan and I become stronger is one of the ways he is saying that he is sorry. Ino was still defensive, and she said I still don't believe that. You are just trying to take away Sasuke-kun's rightful attention. I bet that those tails and ears are not even real. They have to be some sort of hinge. And there is still no way that the Kyuubi is your sensei. He's a demon. Hinata had had enough of Ino's superficial behavior. She snaked one of her tails around Ino's neck and held her in the air by her throat. Growling, she said, "Does this feel like a hinge? Can a hinge slowly squeeze the life out of your pathetic body? I have been patient, but I have had enough of your superficial and fangirlish behavior." Turning to Naruto, she ordered him summon him. I want this girl to see just how wrong she is. I don't care if it freaks out everybody in the building and causes an incident. Just our being here is freaking people out enough, and most of the civilians left when we walked in. So hurry up and summon him. Naruto was seriously scared of Hinata at that point. He had never seen her that angry before, so he quickly followed her orders. In a puff of smoke, standing there was Kurama in his half-human form. Hinata dropped Ino, who then proceeded to cower in a corner for fear of her own life. Kurama just laughed and said to the terrified girl, "You are really pathetic. I should kill you for being unworthy to even be called human, but instead I'm going to prove a point. I'm going to prove that I am not the mindless monster that you think I am by letting you live. Maybe that will knock some sense into you. Who knows, maybe you can learn to be useful by learning to view people for not only what they look like on the outside." My kid was right when he said that he thought I was sorry. I truly am sorry for what I did to your village, but if truth be told, I shouldn't have to be, since it was one of your village's own precious Uchiha that controlled me into attacking the village. So while I could rightfully slaughter you all, I am instead helping your village become stronger than it ever was by training the strongest Hokage and his wife that ever existed. So get it out of your pathetic head that I am mindless and evil. I am on your side, and will be so long as you never harm my kit and his vixen. Also, stop chasing after that stupid brat with the duck's ass on his head. He will never go anywhere in life if he stays like he is, so you might as well not drag yourself to his level. You have potential, but right now you are just a pathetic fangirl. Get it out of your system, train hard, and work with your team so that you will make a name for yourself." The civilians that had stayed even though Naruto and Hinata had entered the establishment were about to run out when they saw who Naruto had summoned, but when they heard Kurama start talking, they couldn't help but feel that they had been too judgmental of Naruto, Hinata, and the Kyuubi. They left that day changed people. Asuma turned to Kurama and said, "Thank you, Kyuubi-sama. When I watched you train Naruto and Hinata all of those years ago, I knew that you were trying to help them so that they could reach their goals. Ever since that day, I have learned not to judge things superficially, and I hope that Ino will reach that realization with what you have said to her. For that I am truly thankful, and hopefully this will mark a new start for my team." The only reason that I was able to pass them today was that Shikamaru managed to convince Ino to help him with his plan was by offering to get a piece of Sasuke's clothing for her. I hope that now she will stop being a fangirl and will now focus on becoming stronger. Ino snapped out of the state of shock that she was in upon hearing these words, stood up and looked Kurama in the eye and said, "I was wrong about you and wrong about the whole way I viewed the world. Your words have made me see the truth. I will stop chasing after Sasuke, as I realize now that while I have done everything that I could to get him to even acknowledge me, he never did. He isn't worth my time. For this, and I can't believe that I am actually saying this, I am in your debt, Kyuubi-sama." Kurama let out a loud laugh and said, "You snapped out of your shock quicker than I would have thought. You are strong, girl. It was only your attitude towards the world that had made you weak. But now I must ask you, what is your new goal?" Ino answered without hesitation, saying, "To help my team become the next and greatest Ino Shikucho trio." Kurama once again laughed and said, "That is a fine goal. Keep it in your heart, and you and your team will become strong. I have done my job now, and I figure that I should get lost before something bad happens, so I will leave you all now." With that said, he poofed away in a cloud of smoke. Ino then turned to Hinata and said, "I'm so sorry, Hinata, I was acting so stupidly before. Can you forgive me?" Hinata giggled and said, "Of course I can. Now that you realize your mistakes, there is no reason not to forgive you. All you needed was for someone to snap you out of the state of mind that you were in, and who better to do that than the Kyuubi? He is very good with words, but he is very blunt about the truth." Ino laughed and said, "I know. But the sad thing was that what he said was the exact truth. I will need to work hard from now on to change that truth." Naruto looked to Hinata and said, "Well, Hina-chan, I think we are done here. We still have to find out what happened with Team 7, but I really don't want to speak to any of the team's members about it. So I suggest we find Kakashi. He is an old friend of mine, as when he was in Umbu, he helped save my life from the villagers a few times. I know exactly where he will be." "Alright, Ruto-kun. After we talk with Kakashi, it should be around dinner, so how about we go on a little date afterwards? We haven't had an official one yet." They said their goodbyes to Team 10, before shining away to the Memorial Stone. Memorial Stone. Kakashi was standing at the Memorial Stone, contemplating the day's events when a voice called out at him and said, "Hey Kakashi-san, still moping about the past I see." He turned to see Naruto and Hinata walking towards him. Actually, I was thinking of how today's test went today, replied Kakashi. Naruto chuckled and said, so you were moping about the test? So how did those three do? Kakashi sighed and said, in all honesty, they shouldn't have passed. Hinata asked, then why did you pass them then? Because if I didn't pass the Uchiha, then the council would kill me. They love that boy and I can't see why they do. He is just a stuck-up brat who thinks he owns the world. The excuse that I came up with to let them pass was that Sakura followed Sasuke's plan perfectly, and Kiba actually saw the sense that he would need to team up with them if he even wanted to stand a chance. I also ended up tying Sasuke to a log and left him to watch his teammates eat lunch as part of the teamwork test, and I suspect that it was only Sakura's undying devotion to him that allowed them to pass that part of the test. Ironically, it was Kiba who showed the most potential of those three. His teamwork with Akamaru was superb. Naruto sighed and said, I figured that you would be forced by the council to pass them, but I am surprised to hear of Kiba's potential. Maybe if he could figure out that women are not objects, then we could actually see eye to eye. I'm still willing to give him a chance, even after what he did in the academy. I figure the best way to knock some sense into him would be to beat him up in a fight, but I really don't want to do any joint training with your team. No offense to you, Kakashi-san. Kakashi chuckled and said, none taken. I don't even want to train my team. But I figure that I have to, and maybe I can get some sense knocked into them if I introduce them to Guy and his flames of youth. Naruto shuddered and said, well, I agree that actually might work. I just want to be as far away from them when you do it. I'm supposed to be 100% immune to genjutsu, and somehow I am still affected by the special genjutsu that Guy and Lee use together. I completely agree with you there. Did you know that the Hokage had that jutsu rated as an S-ranked genjutsu? Asked Kakashi. Really? That explains a lot. Anyways, Hina-chan and I have a date to go on, so we have to go get ready for that. I'll see you around, Kakashi-san. With that, Naruto and Hinata shined away to get ready for their date. Wheel of Torture Chapter 5. Today was the day, is what the Root members thought. Today is the day that we will get into the compound. After numerous failed attempts to get through the main gate, one of the members had the bright idea of climbing over the walls, and so they had begun to climb the walls. They reached the top of the wall and were surprised to find that they were stopped from actually going past the peak of the wall by some sort of invisible barrier. Just then, someone screamed into their comms, abort! Abort! The wheel is spinning. The member who had said this watched the wheel on the gate spin. It chose to settle on cliff racers. The members on the wall watched in horror as the sky was filled by puffs of smoke. Out of the smoke flew cliff racers which proceeded to attack the members on the wall. Several of the members chose to jump to their death, instead of facing the wrath of the flying pterodactyl-type monsters. The victorious shrieks of the cliff racers filled the skies as they left none surviving. They flew circles around the dead bodies until they poofed back to the Red Mountain in clouds of smoke. Naruto and Hinata arrived in front of the Namake's compound in a swirl of flames. They headed inside and went to their bedroom. Hinata turned to Naruto and said, how about you pick out what you are going to wear and go to Yujito's room to get changed? Send her in here so that she can help me pick out what I'm going to wear. Fine, but no using your Byakugan to get a sneak peek on what I'm wearing. I want it to be a surprise. Just send Yujito in to tell me when you are ready, replied Naruto. Hinata giggled and said, you're no fun. But I won't peek. Now run along and get Yujito. Naruto went to his closet and picked something out, but he used his body to shield the garment from Hinata's prying eyes. He then left and went to the guest room that Yujito was staying in. He knocked on her door and waited, hiding his choice of clothes behind his back. Yujito poked her head out and said, what do you want? And I said, Hinata and I are going on our first date, and she wants your opinion on what she should wear. We both want our choice of clothing to be a surprise, so I'm going to change in your room, while you help Hinata with whatever she needs help with, replied Naruto. Yujito squealed with delight and said, this is your first date? Then she'll really need to be wearing something special. I'll go help her right away. I hope you chose something decent too. With that, Yujito raced off to the master bedroom. Naruto stepped inside Yujito's room and got changed. He started watching TV until half an hour later someone knocked on the door. He answered and found that it was Yujito. She said, Hinata is just finishing up putting on her makeup. Why don't you go to the gate and wait for her there? By the way, if you weren't committed to being Hinata's, then I would go out with you given what you look like in those clothes. Naruto chuckled at the compliment and said, sorry Nei-san, but Hinata is my one and only. But thanks for the compliment. I'll head to the gate now. With that said, he took his leave. He headed to the gate and waited at it, examining some of the torture seals on it to pass the time. 5 minutes later he heard a soft Rotokuin. He turned and his jaw dropped at what he saw. Hinata was wearing a sleeveless red sundress that hugged her curves quite nicely. The sundress had a flower motif along the hem of the dress, and was cut low to reveal Hinata's cleavage. She still wore her fox pendant around her neck that rested on her breasts. She wore a pair of lavender heels on her feet. She had a red flower tucked into her hair, which was still in its usual let-down position. She had a small amount of makeup and had a light red lipstick on her lips. You look amazing, Hina-chan, said Naruto. Hinata giggled and said, and you look quite handsome yourself. Naruto-kun. Naruto was wearing a dark blue kimono that had orange tendrils snaking up from the bottom. He didn't even try to comb his hair, since he knew that that would never work. His kimono was open a little in the front, revealing an orange undershirt that blended quite nicely with his kimono. A/N, let's all face it. Naruto can make orange work. He had a pair of simple black shoes with black tabi. Naruto linked his arm with Hinata's, and they left the compound. They were slowly walking deeper into the village when Naruto said it might be difficult for us to find some place to eat. I do not want to eat ramen for our first date, and I'm not in the mood for barbecue, so the Akimichi family place is out too. Then we'll just have to walk in on a place, and see if they are willing to serve us. Hopefully it won't take too long for us to find a place, replied Hinata. As they walked around, they got quite a few stares. Normally these stares were stares of hatred, and they were usually directed to Naruto, as they blamed him for corrupting the Hyuga heir. But today's stares were different. A lot of people were staring at Hinata. The women who stared at her were actually just jealous of her magnificent figure that was being shown off in her sundress. They were so jealous that they were ignoring the fox ears and tails. The many men who stared at her were staring for the obvious reasons, or at least they were until Naruto gave them each a death glare. The people who were staring were also confused. They knew that Naruto would always do his best to not take the normal roads, so as to avoid the hateful populace. But today he was walking in the middle of the street for all to see, with his arm wrapped around the Hyuga heirs. It was as if he was showing off that he was proud of the fact that he was a Hanyu. Then a very drunk man sauntered up to the pair. He slurred out to Hinata, so what's a prieti lality doidoing with a screw-up licky hyam? Whhhyy didn't you kumi with me for a good time? Everyone who was watching what happened were expecting for the demon boy to rip the man limb from limb, but what they saw shocked them. Naruto and Hinata just walked around the man. Seeing that he was being ignored, the man turned and grabbed Hinata's wrist, saying hiya. Hinata just turned to him and released a burst of refined killing intent, stopping the drunk's heart. He dropped down to the ground dead. The bystanders were really not expecting that to happen. They had expected the demon boy to go on a rampage and destroy the village when the drunk had grabbed the girl's wrist. But instead what they saw was the girl turning to look at the drunk, and the drunk falling over dead. They hadn't felt an ounce of the killing intent that she let out, so they were seriously confused as to how the man died. They looked back to the couple to see them walking off like nothing happened. Naruto and Hinata reached a restaurant that piqued their interests, and stepped inside and asked for a table. They were immediately responded with a harsh "We don't serve your kind here, demon. Now take your whore and leave." Naruto just nodded and said very well. That is your loss. Before taking Hinata and walking out the door, they tried 6 other places and each time they were met with a similar response. The next place that they were going to try was a restaurant called Ziki's. They walked in and asked the waiter for a table, and the waiter said, "Why should we serve you, demon?" Naruto and Hinata turned to leave when they heard a voice say, "Wait." They turned around to see a man in his 40s walking after them. He then said, "I'm terribly sorry as to how my waiter treated you. My name is Tadakatsu Ziki. I'm the owner of this restaurant. Please come in and as an apology, I'll give you and your beautiful date a private table for 2. Naruto was confused as to how this man was acting, so he said, "You're willing to let us stay and eat in your restaurant? Not that we are complaining, but if the general populace hears that you let the demon and his whore eat at your restaurant, they will never eat here again. While we appreciate your offer, we do know that your restaurant is newly opened, and we would hate to be the reasons why you got shut down due to lack of business." Mr. Ziki smiled and said, "Such concern for others' welfare is exactly why I should serve you. You see, while I am new to this village, I have heard all of the rumors concerning you too. Unlike everyone else though, I know that they are false. While I did believe them at first, I was there when you summoned the Kyuubi and the Akimichis this afternoon. I have got to say, for being a demon of destruction, his speech to that little girl was damn convincing. It had the same effect on me as it did that girl. I will no longer look at things for what they will appear to be. Therefore, I will be happy for you two to eat at my place." Naruto grinned and said, "So you saw that? Well, I'm glad that you did, because now you have 2 hungry customers. And I will be sure to come back here with my Hina-chan again for our other dates." Hinata giggled and added, "And you really don't have to worry about others leaving because of our reputation. Even if they do leave, you will have more than enough money to keep going on. While we may not look like much, my Naruto-kun can easily out-eat several Akimichi members at once, and I can actually keep up with him. We have more than enough money to pay for whatever amount of food we eat. So don't you worry about other civilians. We are also both personal friends with the Hokage, and we will put in a good word for you to him. I'm sure he'll come here after we tell him, and if you say that you had the Hokage eat at your restaurant, then your business will boom. How do you think that the Akimichi family barbecue got so popular? It's all because the Hokage dropped in for lunch one day after Choza-san completed a personal mission for him." Hearing this, Mr. Ziki's smile broadened and he said, "Then I must get you two to your table immediately. If you can eat like you say you can, and are willing to put a good word to the Hokage if our food proves adequate, then I will never need to advertise again. I will even have my son Yukimura cook for you too. He is my pride and joy, as well as the best cook in the establishment. I told him what I saw today, and now all he holds is admiration for you two and the Kyuubi. so he will be sure to do his best to impress you too. With that said, Mr. Ziki led the couple to a private room. Moments later, an 18-year-old boy wheeled in a cart with the things necessary for cooking on it. He turned to the couple and said, "Hi, I'm Yukimura. I will be your chef for today, and on a more personal note, let me say that you two are awesome. To think that you have been training with the Lord of Demons, and have died and come back to life is awesome. I can only hope that my cooking will impress you as much as your story has impressed me. And I don't want to be intrusive on your personal business, but do you think that you two could tell me a few stories of your training? When I was young, I always wanted to be a ninja, but I lacked the chakra reserves necessary to become one. So I became a top-rate cook to help my dad, but I also took lessons in how to use the spear in the meantime as a hobby. I have to say that I'm pretty dang good. But anyways, what would you two like to eat?" Naruto and Hinata ordered some food, and as Yukimura cooked it, they talked about the training that they each went through. It turned out that Yukimura's training in using the spear was very intense for as far as a civilian can go. Needless to say, both Naruto and Hinata were impressed with the drive and passion that he held when it came to both cooking and training with the spear. When Yukimura finished cooking the first batch of food, Hinata beckoned him to stay and chat under the premise that such a small amount of food would not satisfy the couple. So stay he did, and when Naruto and Hinata finished the batch, they quickly ordered another. This process was repeated several times as the night went on, until both Naruto and Hinata decided that they had enough. Yukimura left to get his father so that they could work out the bill. When Mr. Ziki calculated the bill, it came out to be 250,000 ryo. Mr. Ziki's eyes widened at the amount of food that had generated this hefty sum of money, and he actually tried to lower the amount that Naruto and Hinata had to pay. Naruto just chuckled at Mr. Ziki's efforts as he took out his wallet and took out 50,000 ryo notes. He gave them to the wide-eyed Mr. Ziki, and then gave him 2 more to give to his son as a tip for making such excellent food. Mr. Ziki just stood there with the money in his hand, completely shocked that they had just used 350,000 ryo in one sitting at his restaurant. Hinata giggled at him, and said, "I'll bet that you are wondering why we are willing to throw that kind of money around so nonchalantly. It's because my Ruto-kun is the heir to the Namikaze clan, and I swear that they must have been very successful treasure hunters or something with the amount of money that they have in their vault. So 350,000 ryo is barely a tiny fraction of the true amount of money we have. We also don't have very many friends, so when we do make friends, we choose to support them with our all. You can expect to see us and the Hokage here again very soon, Mr. Ziki. We had a wonderful time and your son is really quite the young man, so until next time, have a good life." With that said, Naruto and Hinata walked out the door. They started walking back to the compound when Naruto said, "Don't think that our date is over yet, Hina-chan. When we get back to the compound, I want us to spend some time together alone in our special place. While I had a great time talking with Yukimura, in my opinion a date is supposed to be just between the two of us. So we are going to head home and get changed into our swimsuits so that we can relax in our special place, just the two of us." Hinata gave Naruto a peck on the cheek and said, "You're always so thoughtful of others, Ruto-kun. That's one of the many reasons that I love you." When they got back to the compound, they went to the master bedroom and got changed into their bathing suits. They snuck out to the cave so that Yujito wouldn't notice them and follow, and headed through the passage until they got to the cavern. Naruto was the first to walk into one of the hot springs, with Hinata soon following him. Naruto sat on one of the carved-out benches in the spring with Hinata sitting next to him. They just relaxed and enjoyed being together, talking about random things as the heat from the springs slowly made them drowsy. Eventually, they decided that if they stayed in there too long that they would fall asleep, so they got out and dried off. They headed back to the main compound where they went straight to their room and went straight to bed, falling asleep in their swimsuits. The next few weeks passed by at an enjoyable pace for Naruto and Hinata. Every day they would visit the Hokage's office and get their 20 D-ranked missions. Occasionally they would get a C or B ranked mission instead. They also had several more dates at Ziki's, and they also told the Hokage of Ziki's. So of course he went there. Instantly, the place became a booming business with the shinobi side of the village. The civilian side was still wary of the place being corrupted by the demon pair, but they slowly came around. The place was constantly packed, but there was always one private room that would only be used for whenever Naruto and Hinata would come for one of their dates. It was one afternoon that Naruto and Hinata came into the Hokage's office to ask for their usual missions when Hiruzen gave them only one mission. The mission was to immediately go and provide backup for Team 7's mission to escort a bridge builder to the Land of Waves. Apparently, the mission was supposed to be C-ranked, but the bridge builder had lied about how dangerous it would be. Now it was to be considered A-ranked, and the mission for Naruto and Hinata was A-ranked as well. While Hiruzen would normally never even dream of sending 2 genin on an A-ranked mission, but he knew just how special Naruto and Hinata were, and he had complete faith in their abilities. So upon getting their new mission, Naruto and Hinata immediately shined away to catch up to the team. Wheel of Torture Chapter 6. Today was like any other day for the Root members, meaning that they had failed, once again, at getting into the Namikaze compound. So what was their punishment this time, one might ask? And the answer they would get would be Goombas. Lots and lots of Goombas. When a member had injected his chakra and the wheel had said Goombas, they were extremely confused. They had no idea what a Goomba was. They were pleasantly surprised to find that they were quite weak and easy to kill. That did not help them. The sheer numbers of the Goomba horde gradually overwhelmed the root members who were at the door today. There were all sorts too. From the regular, mundane Goomba, to the spiny spiked Goomba. And of course you couldn't ever forget about the Paragoombas. Or the Goombas that hopped about in boots. Or the blue and slightly harder to kill Gloom Ball. Even the Goomba King was there in all of his, not so, majestic glory. So of course the root members were sadly overrun by the sheer numbers. After all, while Goombas may not be a quality opponent, they more than make up for it in quantity. Yujito was a bit pissed off. Today was another check-in day with the Kumo Jonin that were her contacts. She hated those men. They were either leering at her or treating her like a weapon, just like the rest of Kumo did. In all honesty, sometimes she would have preferred to be treated like a demon like Naruto, instead of a weapon. Being treated like a weapon meant that she got respect, but it was all false respect. She hated it. She also figured that the men would try and take her back to Kumo today, so that she could be a good weapon and help with the capture of the Byakugan, like she should. So Yujito went behind their backs and told her team about her meeting. So now she was traveling a little ways outside Konoha, with Shino, Fu, and Kurenai following. They were all invisible though. Kurenai had put up a very high genjutsu that rendered her invisible to all but the very best sensors, and Fu had scattered scale powder on her and Shino that reflected the light and disrupted chakra, making them completely invisible. Yujito herself had put a demon henge on, turning herself back to her 13-year-old body. The only thing that she couldn't change was her new eyes. They remained yellow and green. As she neared the rendezvous point, she immediately saw the group of Cloud Jonin. Idiots, you're deep within Konoha's territory, and you just stand out in the open like that? She thought. One of the Jonin noticed her approaching and said, "Hey Yujito-chan, what's up with your eyes? It's a side effect from controlling too much of the Nibi's power, pay it no mind." Responded Yujito with a half-truth. "Fine, so what news do you bring us involving the Hyuga girl?" Asked the Jonin. "A lot, actually. Most of it good," said Yujito. "Although she is officially no longer a Hyuga, but she managed to escape being branded by the seal. She is only under the protection of her boyfriend and their Jonin sensei. However, if that's the case, we should just go in and kidnap her now," said the Jonin excitedly. "Quite, you idiot, and let me finish," yelled Yujito. "We will not be going in to capture them now, and we will wait to the Chunin exams as we originally planned. This is because of who her boyfriend is. If we do not separate them, then it will be impossible for her to be captured." "Why?" asked one of the Jonin. "It's simple. Her boyfriend is Naruto Uzumaki, village pariah and host of the Kyubi no Kitsune. Unlike me, he has no control over his demon though. If we were to try to capture the girl with him there, he would go on a rampage. The only survivors would be him and the girl. They were put together on a special two-man team for a reason, that reason being that the girl is the only one who can snap him out of his rampaging state, and if we were trying to capture her, then I see no reason why she wouldn't just let him slaughter us, especially since she still holds a grudge against Kumo for our failed attempt to capture her when she was 3. Also, if that were to happen, the whole village would be notified by the chakra he would put off, and a special team of ANBU would be sent to keep watch to make sure nothing goes out of control. The ANBU would immediately capture us if we weren't dead already," explained Yujito. "Very well, in that case you are to return to Kumo immediately, so that you can be put on one of the genin teams that we will be sending to capture her with," said a Jonin. "That is also a bad idea. If the transfer student from the cloud were to suddenly disappear from her team, the Hyuga would immediately put themselves on guard, and the Hokage would become suspicious and order to have the girl tailed with ANBU. We would never get her then. The Leaf ANBU are very good at doing their jobs. I will remain in the village and continue working with my team. They trust me and are a very good source of information," again explained Yujito. The Jonin then huddled together and spoke amongst themselves before breaking apart, and saying, "Very well, you will remain in the village for the time being. We will again meet a few days before the Chunin exams. Try and find out what tests will be given. If we can refine our plan with that information, then we will." With that said, they shined off to get back to Kumo. Once they were a fair distance away, Kurenai released her genjutsu and Shino and Fu shrugged off the scale powder, causing them to shimmer into existence. Kurenai then said, "Well, that went probably the best that it could have gone. Very good job giving them that misinformation, Yujito. So long as they keep thinking that Hinata is weak and of no threat to them, then they won't be prepared for what is going to hit them when they decide to attack the pair. They will stand no chance against Naruto and Hinata." Yujito giggled and said, "I know. I just can't wait to see their faces when they realize that I betrayed them. I can't wait to officially denounce my citizenship in the cloud and join the Leaf. Next time I see Naruto and Hinata, I'll tell them to not kill the cloud that attacked them, just so that I can tell it to their faces." Shino then spoke up and said, "We should report our findings to the Hokage. I am sure that he will be intrigued to find that Kumo is still after the Byakugan." Kurenai then said to Shino, "By the way, how did your father react to you bringing Fu home with you?" Shino blushed and said, I think that my father is now thinking of naming Fu as clan head instead of me now. With that they shined away to talk to the Hokage, forest in the land of waves. Kakashi was in trouble and he knew it. First off, their clan had lied to them, and they were attacked by the demon brothers. Sasuke managed to get hit by one of their poisoned claws, but Kiba was actually able to take out one of the brothers. However, that had left him open, and he would have been ripped apart by the other brother if he himself hadn't chosen to intervene. If Sakura wasn't standing there like a useless fangirl, then she could have protected Kiba and he wouldn't have had to step in. Sasuke actually managed to deal with the poison by bleeding it out by stabbing his hand with a kunai, but Kakashi had a sneaking suspicion that he had done that out of his emo instinct. So he gave Sasuke no credit there. After that whole fiasco, they learned the truth from Tazuna, and he had sent a dog to the Hokage for backup. He was originally going to call off the mission, but it was Kiba's loyalty to the mission that convinced him otherwise. He was very proud of Kiba. The rest of their trip went off without a hitch, until they got to this forest that they were in. Kiba smelled a rabbit that wasn't from around there, and that had saved the team's life. It was enough to put him on guard quick enough to notice the giant sword that was flying through the air at them and pull his team to the ground. The sword's wielder turned out to be Zabuza Momochi, and Kakashi had known that he would not be able to fight him while protecting his team, so he had ordered them to stand back. So of course the emo didn't. He had walked up to Zabuza and demanded that he be given the sword, as it should be in the hands of the elite Uchiha. The idiot. Zabuza had proceeded to lift Sasuke up and threw him against a tree, knocking him out. So of course, the fangirl broke formation and rushed over to her precious Sasuke-kun. But as the saving grace for the team, Kiba had actually listened to orders and backed off with Tazuna. So Kakashi began his fight with Zabuza. They had traded blows, until he had slipped up and followed Zabuza onto his own turf, a lake. That resulted in himself being caught in a water prison. Kakashi was contemplating these things while he sat inside the dome of water. He knew that he could escape by activating his Raikiri, but he did not want to run the chance of stopping his own heart. If he died, Kiba wouldn't stand a chance, and he would probably die due to his loyalty to the mission. He could only hope that the backup that the Hokage would hopefully send would arrive in time to save them. Just then a blur of black and lavender shot out from the forest and nicked the dome of water. Instantly the bubble destabilized and the water fell back into the lake. The blur shot back into the forest. Kakashi jumped back onto land and thanked the log that backup had gotten there in time. He turned to the forest where the blur had come from and saw Naruto standing there grinning with his arms folded and Hinata swirling a lavender and black kusarigama around by its chain, idly whistling a tune. Naruto then spoke up and said, "It looks like we made it just in time, Hina-chan?" Kakashi looked to them and said, "Your timing was perfect. I would not have been able to hold my breath a moment longer. While I am thankful for your help, I have to say that I'm a bit surprised that the Hokage sent 2 genin on an A-ranked mission, even if you two are special. But be careful, this man is Zabuza Momochi, demon of the hidden mist, and a former member of the 7 swordsmen. Hold him off while I regain some of my strength, and then I will help you take him down." Hinata giggled and said, "Sorry Kakashi-san, but you should not have said that he was a member of the 7 swordsmen. My Rudo-kun has been looking for someone who could give him a challenge in Kenjutsu ever since he surpassed Gekko-sensei. So he will not want your or my help unless he really needs it." Zabuza's eyes widened upon hearing this and he said to Naruto, "You mean to say that you surpassed the hate Gekko?" Naruto nodded and Zabuza laughed and continued, "Then I will not be underestimating you, kid. I've heard of how good Gekko was with the blade, and if you've surpassed him, then you could actually give me a challenge. Tell me, what blade do you wield? It is common courtesy between swordsmen to say what blades that they wield. Also, if you want, I am curious as to how your girlfriend's kusarigama stopped my water prison. It also cut off the chakra flowing into the arm that I had in the prison to keep it going, and that's got me curious if she is wielding what I think she's wielding." Naruto stepped out into the clearing and said, "Yes, I surpassed Hate Gekko, and I have to say that if you're as good as he was, then I will have a fun time fighting you. I've surpassed him in skill, but his experience far outshines my own. Skills alone won't make you powerful." Unsheathing his sword, Naruto continued, "I wield the vortex blade, the Kaduken. And as to how my girlfriend carved through your water prison, she wields the kusarigama known as the Abyss, the Shinen. It has the ability to disrupt the chakra of whatever it cuts and absorbs it into its blade, also absorbing the chakra of anything connected to what it cuts." Zabuza's eyes widened further upon these revelations, and he said, "You mean to say that you wield the Kaduken, one of the fabled Uzumaki blades of legend? Those weapons' abilities are said to surpass those of the 7 swords of the mist, which were actually just gifts from the Uzumaki as a sign of friendship with Kiri. And your girlfriend wields one of the most powerful kusarigamas in existence? Who the hell are you two?" Naruto's grin widened and he said, "I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, heir to both the Uzumaki and Namikaze clan. This beautiful lady here is Hinata Namikaze, formerly Hinata Hyuga, and is my mate, wife, and girlfriend. We are both Kitsune Hanyu, becoming so after merging with the Lord of Demons, the Kyuubi no Kitsune." Zabuza's eyes were practically popping out of his head, but then he gained control over himself and started laughing, saying, "Ha ha ha ha, that's quite the reputation you have there, kid. I like you. I'll tell you what, I'll cut you a deal. We'll have our fight, but we won't kill each other. If I win, then you will stand by as I kill the bridge builder and you and I go on with our merry lives like nothing happened. If you win, I will stop hunting the bridge builder and will even go and kill my bastard of an employer for you. Then after you guys finish building that bridge, my adopted daughter and I will come back with you to Konoha. Haku, come out here and show yourself. Haku jumped out of a tree and landed next to Zabuza's side. Zabuza then continued, once we get back to Konoha, you can do whatever you want with us. I'm giving up on my ambition to kill that bastard Yagura. Naruto grinned and said, those sound like fine terms to me, Zabuza-san. And did you say Yagura? I heard that he died and that yesterday was the coronation for the new Mizukage. I heard that it was some chick named Mei Terumi. Zabuza started to sweat and he said, then there is definitely no way in hell that I'm going to ever go back to Kiri. I almost want you to win now. I think I would be safer in Konoha. Naruto's sweat dropped and said, why? Do you know her or something? Do I know her? She's my girlfriend. Or at least she was until I lead the failed coup on Kiri and abandoned her there. If I ever return there, she would melt my body to goop with one of those two Kekii Genkai of hers. Naruto's sweat dropped again and said, anyways, I don't think that you have introduced me to your blade yet, Zabuza-san. Zabuza composed himself and said, yes, I wield the decapitating carving knife, the Kubikuribocho. I'm sure that we will have a fun match, so let's begin. With that, Zabuza and Naruto raced towards each other, and that's a wrap. I know that I'm evil. In the next chapter, I will reveal the abilities of the Kaduken, and it will be the first time that I will write a fight scene. I hope that I will not disappoint. Anyways, on with the Omake, Wheel of Torture, Chapter 7. The root members were now getting used to the fact that the door would often say things that they did not understand or did not recognize. So today, when the wheel stopped on something that they recognized, they were very afraid at what it stopped on. It had stopped on Amaterasu, so the root members just stood there in fear with their eyes shut, awaiting their fate that they were certain would be fiery black flames of death. To their surprise, however, they heard a poof of smoke that sounded like something being summoned. They opened their eyes to see a white wolf with intricate red markings on its body and a flaming shield on its back. QSN's theme. They noticed a little black bouncing thing on the wolf's head and were very surprised when it started to talk. It said, hey Ami, that stupid door summoned us again. And it looks like it not the normal IWA dudes either. That means that Minato guy pissed someone else off. I still can't believe that he rejected your offer to become a god after he helped us save Nippon from Yami. I mean, you even revealed your human form for him when you asked him. And I thought Sakuya was hot. I mean, damn, why don't you go around in your hum? The little sprite was stopped short by the wolf tossing him up and grabbing him in her mouth before spitting it out on the ground. The root members were seriously confused as to what had just happened, but their confusion was cut short by several things happening at once. Some of the members were incinerated by flames that leapt from the shield to their bodies. Others were suddenly chopped into fine strips by an invisible blade, and others were ripped limb from limb by a sudden gale force wind that targeted only the root members. None survived. The wolf goddess turned to the door and looked sadly at it. She then placed her paw on the door, and then poofed away in a bright flash of light with Isen. Naruto and Zabuza's blades clashed with a mighty clang. Zabuza was wielding his blade with one arm, since it was still numb from having its chakra disrupted by the Shinen. Naruto, however, was using both arms, so he gradually began to overpower Zabuza. Seeing this, Zabuza jumped back, breaking their engagement, and said, I'm impressed, kid, you can actually overpower my one arm, even though you are just a genin. Naruto leapt after him, clashing his blade against Zabuza's once more, and said, you should know that the key to being a ninja is deception. Currently, our rank and age is one of our greatest strengths, along with our non-existent reputation. While you are definitely not underestimating me as you said you would, as you would have lost already if you did, you still should realize that you should expect the unexpected fighting me. I am known as the #1 prankster in Konoha, and I intend to uphold my reputation, even in battle. Saying this, he suddenly leapt off his engagement and backed away. Zabuza laughed at his actions and said, you really are willing to do the unexpected, seeing as you just backed off when you had the clear advantage. Naruto grinned and said, if you think that's unexpected, how about this? Turning to Hinata, he said, Hina-chan, would you please unnumb Zabuza-san's arm for him? I would like to fight him while he's at his full power. Zabuza's grin was visible through his mask, and he said, you really are something else, kid, and you value a full fight, like I do. Even though we are enemies for the time being, I trust you not to pull anything underhanded, even considering your reputation as a prankster. You said that your girlfriend was formerly a Hyuga? Very well, come here, Missy, and unblock my arm. Hinata walked over to Zabuza and poked a few spots on his arm, filling them with chakra, and making it mobile again. She then backed off to the clearing to continue observing the fight. Zabuza laughed again and said, you ready, kid? Let's see if you can stand up to my full strength. He then dashed towards Naruto, clashing once more. This time, he gradually overpowered Naruto, as with the weight of Kubikuribocho, combined with the strength of both arms, overwhelmed Naruto. Struggling against the weight of the attack, Naruto said, you really are powerful, Zabuza-san. But now that we've seen who has more pure power, how about we see who has superior speed? With that, Naruto vanished from under Zabuza's blade, which upon losing the resistance of Naruto quickly sunk into the ground. Naruto then reappeared above Zabuza and sent a slash to the back of Zabuza's neck. Zabuza then kawarami'd with a nearby log, which was sliced in two by the Kadoken. Zabuza then reappeared behind Naruto and swung his sword in an effort to slice Naruto in half, but Naruto vanished once again. Reappearing on the ground, he started dashing around Zabuza, picture Ichigo vs Byakuya, before lunging at Zabuza with a stab. Zabuza attempted to block with the flat side of Kubikuribocho, and succeeded for a moment, but Naruto then channeled his wind chakra through Kadoken, piercing Kubikuribocho. Zabuza twisted to the side in an effort to avoid the blade, and he managed to avoid a serious wound, but he was still hit. Naruto then twisted Kadoken and using his wind nature, cut a chunk off Kubikuribocho. Naruto backed off from Zabuza and said, "Looks like I drew first blood. It also looks like that I have superior speed due to the weight of your sword." Zabuza laughed and said, "I'm really impressed. You pulled a fast one on me with that wind-natured chakra of yours. To be able to cut through Kubikuribocho is quite the feat, as only the most powerful wind and lighting users can do that. But that is no matter, allow me to introduce Kubikuribocho's ability." He then bent down and picked up the chunk of the blade that Naruto had sliced off and lined it up against the main portion. He then held the blade against his wound that was still bleeding profusely, and the blade sealed the crack, repairing it completely. Zabuza then said Kubikuribocho's ability is rather unique in that it does no harm to the opponent. It simply absorbs the iron from blood and uses it to repair the blade if it ever gets broken. This means that one has to rely on one's own skills with the blade, and not an overpowered ability, showing true swordsmanship. I despise Samahata for that reason. While I admit that the sentient blade will only choose those worthy to wield it, it will make its wielder rely on its power too much and dull their skills as a swordsman. Naruto grinned and said, "You truly are a worthy swordsmaster, Zabuza-san. If you are as powerful as you are with a sword that its ability only helps you fight without doing any harm to the opponent, then you know the truth that one cannot simply become powerful by relying on unique abilities. I can honestly say that I would lose to you in a fight of pure swordsmanship, but my Kadoken has a unique ability to help even the odds. How about I introduce you to it?" Zabuza went into a defensive stance upon hearing this, and Naruto then slashed his blade along the ground, shouting Reizenkidu. The blade picked up the earth as it sliced the ground, before Naruto finished the slash at Zabuza. The earth and rocks that it churned up were then sent spiraling towards Zabuza with great speed, forcing Zabuza to kawarimi with a nearby log to escape. Naruto then channeled his fire chakra through his blade, causing it to glow with flames, before slicing at Zabuza once more, shouting Reizenkidu. Once again. This time it was a vortex of flames that shot off of the Kadoken, spiraling towards Zabuza. Zabuza was forced to drop the Kubikuribocho and flew through hand signs, shouting Suetun, Sujin Hiki before exhaling a wall of water out of his mouth which clashed with the Reizenkidu, creating a great deal of steam. Zabuza then took advantage of the steam covering the battle by going through a few hand signs and saying Suetun, Kirigakure no Jutsu. The battlefield was covered in a thick, obscuring mist. No one could see anymore. So Naruto closed his eyes and waited. He did not have to wait long as a blade suddenly whistled through the air behind him, but Naruto held Kadoken behind him and blocked the strike. However, the strike had too much weight behind it, and Naruto was sent flying through the air. He did a backflip midair and landed on his feet. Knowing that he had a little time, he stuck Kadoken in the ground and went through a few hand seals and said Futon, De Tapa, before exhaling a great gust of air, clearing the mist from the battlefield. Zabuza then said, "I'm impressed that you were able to block my blade inside the mist. Silent killing is my specialty. Care to explain how?" Naruto grinned and said, "These ears are not just for show, you know. Even if you are completely silent to what humans could hear, I can still hear you." Naruto then focused his wind chakra through Kadoken and sliced at Zabuza with another Reizenkidu. The spiraling wind was much faster than the flame and earth versions of the technique, so Zabuza was unable to dodge or block in time. He took the full brunt of the attack, causing large lacerations to appear on his body. He did not, however, even yell in pain. He took it like the badass that he is. He started laughing and said, "Well, I'll be damned. You beat me. That Reizenkidu is something else, kid. It's no wonder why that blade is legendary. As per our deal, I will stop hunting the bridge builder. But I would appreciate it if you helped Haku heal me. I will kill that bastard Gato as soon as I am better." With that said, he fell over and fainted from blood loss. Naruto sheathed his sword and let out a huge sigh. He turned to Hinata and said, "Hina-chan, could you come over here and begin healing him? You're the best healer we have here. He will be coming to the wave with us, and I wish to help him take out Gato. If Gato is as rich as I've heard, he will probably have some strong ninja hired as bodyguards, and Zabuza-san will need all the help that he can get." Hinata hurried over to Zabuza and began healing him, with Haku hovering closely behind her. Then Kakashi, Kiba, and Tazuna walked over. Kakashi said, "I'm truly impressed with your skill, Naruto. To think that you could take on Zabuza and win without getting a scratch is one of the most impressive feats that I have ever seen." Naruto grinned and said, "Don't think too much on it. His pure strength far exceeded mine, and if I got hit once, I would have been down for the count. If I hadn't worked on my speed for so long with Kurama-sensei, then I would have been destroyed. My wind-style Rasenkaku is my fastest attack, and if I hadn't resorted to using it, I would have lost. The other variations of Rasenkaku are more powerful, but I would have never hit him with them. Also, if I hadn't surprised him by cutting through his blade and gotten that wound on him, he would have still been standing after getting hit by my Rasenkaku, as he would not have fainted from blood loss so soon. Kiba then spoke up and said, even still, that was amazing. There is no way that I'm going to mess with you or Hinata after seeing that. If she is as strong as you, then I have no chance with her. But now I feel like I'm so far behind everybody. Naruto then said, I'm glad that you are finally seeing sense about Hina-chan and I. But don't think that you are behind everyone. I talked with Kakashi-san the other day, and he said that you have great potential. Just keep training hard and it will show. You are already much better than the Banshee in the team, so don't let them hold you back. I would suggest finding a personal sensei to train you in your spare time. Kakashi is not a good choice for you, since you are a taijutsu type, and he is a ninjutsu type. I suggest that you go speak with Miyato Guy, and ask him to train you, as he is a taijutsu master. A word of warning though, don't let the flames of youth consume you, or you will never be the same again. Guy's methods are a bit extreme, but if you can survive them, you will be much stronger than you were before. Kiba looked at Naruto and said, thanks, that means a lot for me to hear you say that. I will ask Guy-sensei to train me when we get back. Hinata then walked over and said, Zabuza-san's wounds have been closed. We just have to wait until he recovers, then we can move on, unless one of you wants to carry him? Everyone shook their heads no, and Hinata continued, very well, we should set up camp for a little while. Also someone should alert the Banshee that the fight's over. I think that she wasn't even watching, as she was just staring at the team. Kakashi then walked over to the Banshee and told her to come help set up a temporary camp. He also picked up Sasuke and took him to where the rest of the group was, so of course the Banshee followed. When they got over, Sakura noticed Zabuza and Haku and screeched, why are they still here and still alive? They attacked us. Naruto and Hinata winced and Kakashi explained Naruto broke a deal with them. They are no longer our enemies, and have agreed to help us with our mission. So don't worry about them and don't get in their way. Sakura was still unbelieving and said, what could Naruto Baka possibly do to get them to agree to a deal? He is nothing special. Kakashi sighed and said he stated his heritage and a little of his abilities, then the two fought and Naruto won, so now they are with us. Sakura then screeched, if Naruto Baka won, then he really must have been weak. It must have been a fluke that he knocked out Sasuke-kun, as he is way stronger than Naruto Baka. Hinata had enough of the Banshee's squealing, so she said to her, why don't you attend to Sasuke until he wakes up? This effectively shut the Banshee up as she sat by Sasuke and stared at him. Kakashi turned to Kiba and said, why don't you use that nose of yours to find something for us to eat, while I start a fire to cook it on? Naruto should rest, and Hinata should stand by and keep an eye on Zabuza's condition. Kiba agreed and went off to hunt with Akamaru. He returned 15 minutes later with several rabbits. They then cooked them and started eating their meal. They asked Haku about her and Zabuza's past together and got the story of their lives so far, as well as a brief introduction to what her abilities were. They then broke up into two groups, one with Kakashi and Kiba beginning Kiba's tree climbing exercises with Tazuna watching with interest, while the other was of Naruto, Hinata, and Haku, who continued talking about Haku's abilities and Naruto and Hinata's pasts. The day slowly went on as they all waited for Zabuza to regain consciousness.